Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Hot Mic. The Hot Mic podcast is where divergent points of view debate and discuss hot topics. Sorry about starting a little bit late today. Had some technical difficulties. We got to get that HB1 visa up so we can get the qualified technicians that we need to make sure this show gets onto Facebook and other platforms. I'm Nathan Ivy, aka Nate the Barbarian, joined by Phil Heimlich, Kevin Aldridge, Tarris Horton, and T.Nicole Taylor. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Hot Mic. How are you?
Great.
Doing good. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys bearing with me. You got to see the back end of it, but things happen from time to time. But we are here, so it's a beautiful Tuesday. Many people might be snowed in, so this may be the only thing you got to do. So turn us in and comment and interact with us if you like, as we talk about some of the hot topics here. So yesterday was January 6th, the 4-year anniversary of what some people are called a violent insurrection. Other people called it a day of love. I want to play a quick video for you, and I want to talk about the politics of all of that and what it means for our country and our culture moving forward. But check this out.
Going to try to get compliance, but this is now effectively a riot.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
5 to 50 be advised, Cal Police 1 advised they're trying to breach and get into the Capitol.
We have a breach of the Capitol! Breach of the Capitol!
They love to me.
We need to hold the doors of the Capitol! I need to...
So I'm not going to play too much more of it, but I wanted to just give us a base for the conversation as to, having some kind of visual evidence of what actually happened there. And since then, a lot of things have happened. A lot of people blame, and I think rightly so, Donald Trump from the role he played in creating that whole mess. But since then, there has been a serious effort to whitewash the history of it. Donald Trump has been reelected. It seems as if the American people or the American electorate didn't care enough in terms of it being an issue that they would stop, that they would use that issue against Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, at this point, it looks as if there's been really no negative outcome whatsoever on Donald Trump for his role in that. And not just Donald Trump. People forget his co-conspirators and all the multiple people, some elected officials who were involved with the cover-up. Just yesterday, Vice President Harris, and I give the woman a lot of credit for the way that she handled it. She actually had to certify the election that she lost. And there was an incident that happened there as well in terms of one of the husbands of the senator who was being sworn in decided not to shake her hand. People have been making a big deal about it. I want to get to that as well. But I want to talk about January 6th. There's so many ways of looking at this. Like, on one hand, what is going to be the overall impact of January 6th? Will it be positive? Will it negative? Will it be negative? But then also, who is winning the war of telling the story of what actually happened on January 6th? Anybody can chime in.
I'll start. I'll start and go. January 6th is subjective. What you showed is what the left-wing liberal media wanted to show, and they did for 4 years. Whenever, if you go back to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they had special breaking reports on January 6th, like a year after. I think it was the year after. They wanted to commemorate the day. They said, we want to commemorate this day. And I do not support January 6th. I'm going to say that. First and foremost, I'm just giving you an objective, alternative viewpoint, first and foremost. And an educated one, because there's things called congressional hearings that go on where Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, I'm just talking about my specific congressman, get to drill people on January 6th. And all those hearings that came out that Donald Trump was exonerated. And I do not support what happened on January 6th at all. But if you go and you look at with the Senate majority, the Senate committee hearings, you'll find something different that they found out in the courts, Supreme Court. Everybody said it wasn't. Donald Trump was not implicated. And I'll land here. Whoever wins gets to write the history. Donald Trump won the election. So January 6th will soon be a mere memory in history, because if the Democratic Party would have won, they would have continued to pour gasoline on the fact, because there is an alternative view from what you showed of people on the other side letting people into the Capitol. There's lots of videos. You can show all kinds of videos. This is what the left-wing liberal media does. They show what they want, pour gasoline on people's emotions, and then go from there. And I'll end there.
Let me just say this. What Tarris said is absolutely freaking ridiculous. Let me just say that. And it's an insult to, I think, people's intelligence. You know, you just showed that video there. And we all remember where we were on January 6, 2020, and when we watched that video. And I asked people to go back to that day. And the liberal media is not showing you what they wanted to show. They showed you what happened. They showed you people breaking windows and coming in. That's not doctored or altered video. That's absolutely what happened. And people need to believe their eyes from what they saw on January 6, 2020. And they need to remember how they felt. They need to remember what every politician, Republican and Democrat alike, said after that day. The real stuff, the raw emotions, the actuality of what happened, not the politicized, doctored speeches that people are giving and the rewriting of history that's happening 4 years later. We all know what we saw. We all know what we felt. It was horrible. It was one of the worst days in American history. And what has happened since is what happens nowadays in our politics, is that for self-serving reasons, politicians do and say whatever they need to say without any lack of integrity, without any sense of integrity, without any care for how it's going to impact the country long term. They'll say whatever they need to say to get elected or to get their person elected. January 6th was a terrible day that should live in infamy. Those who committed those horrible acts deserve to go to jail, should stay in jail, should not get exonerated by or pardoned by President Trump. That will be another crime that you can add to the lists of things that he has done if he in fact does that. But don't sit there and be fooled by people like Tarris who want you to believe that January 6th was not what it was and that it was some plot by the Democrats or the liberal media. You saw what you saw. It was what it was, and it is what it is, no matter what you say. And the fact that it only fades away into history if those of us who have a conscience and who are who care about democracy and the right things keep it alive. Doesn't matter whether Donald Trump wants to rewrite history or not. We will be the worst for it if we allow him to do that and allow it to go unchecked. But that's just ridiculous to talk about this being some kind of left-wing media conspiracy.
Yes. Well, go ahead, Phil.
I would say that Tarris, I think, referred to January 6th, how you view it as subjective. I would say it is no more subjective than the night of the broken glass, Kristallnacht. I'm sure that in the months that followed that, the German government, Nazis, probably blamed the Jews for it in the first place, but that doesn't make it subjective. And I think if you look at dictatorships like Russia now and China and North Korea, you'll know that the government tells you something that is wrong, is happening when it didn't even happen. Even if the evidence is right in front of you, they tell you, no, that what you see did not happen. And we are seeing exactly that now when the president-elect calls it a day of love. I mean, anybody with any, frankly, objectivity or intelligence that looks at those videos that you just showed there, Nathan, nobody would call it a day of love. And yet, I guess the majority of people in my party and a large segment of the country is willing to accept what a politician, a demagogue says, even though their very eyes can see that it did not occur. And I think what really scares me about this is the nominee to be head of the FBI, Kash Patel. He has spoke numerous times. He has said that January 6th was an FBI plant, that the FBI caused this. And this is the guy who's now going to head up the FBI. Well, if that doesn't scare you, it scares me, that's for sure.
It's funny that they have all the excuses. This is the part of history that people want to forget are on the right. But then the person that was in office at that time was Trump, so he orchestrated. So somehow the team coming in orchestrated all this. Like, give me a break. This was supposed to be a day of peaceful transition of power. That did not happen. When he lost, he had a full sucker attack called on his troops. These are terrorists, white right-wing terrorist groups, and they had their day. And what we saw, just like Kevin and Phil said, is what it is. So we're not going to, go for like, don't believe your lying eyes. Like, that's such an insult. That was back-to-back coverage of everything, of people breaking in, people beating on police officers and defecating in offices, stealing things. These are sacred halls, chambers, and they just went in like so entitled, so beyond anything you've ever seen. And these were Americans. Terrorism happening by us, by Americans. And so, of course, this day it has to be, here and emphasized with every year, just so we can remember that our democracy is fragile. And even on that day, despite all odds, democracy still stood the what's the
test.
word? They were they were all certified at the end of the day. And so despite all of that, and even someone losing their life, democracy still stood. But that just shows how fragile it is. And we really have to look into the fact that, had this election not happened the way it happened, everybody was afraid, was it going to be a part two? And so that's not what this country is built on. That's not what it should be. It shouldn't be liberals against conservatives or Republicans versus. We are the United States. We are all supposed to be one. And on this day, we're supposed to come as one, govern as one, of the people, by the people, for the people, all of that. And so, this administration has a very, very ugly way of dividing Americans and making it so, how we look at each other, how we treat each other, is like we're the enemy. And this is our country, and that's our, that's our White House. And they went in there and they just disrespected it to the fullest, and worse than any outside terrorist could even do. And so to sit up here and act like, this was a day of love, and then for him to, add insult to injury and say, oh, and then I'm going to pardon these violent individuals. Like this was an act of terror, and he's going to pardon these individuals. 90% of what these individuals did was some form of violence against police officers, or just violence in general, like they were going to, set off bombs or whatever. And so you're going to let these people out? That's what he said on day one. Day one, he wanted to let people out, do something with the border. And one other thing.
Can I follow up with something Nicole just said, if I could? She said, used the expression about those who are trying to rewrite history as saying that they are, quote, on the right, meaning they are, quote, conservative. And I don't want to kick Kevin Gordon when he's down or when he's not here, but though I'd love to hear his response to this. But as you know, on this show, he's kind of said to me, oh, Phil, you're not a real Republican. You ought to become a Democrat. Well, I would say to all the Republicans that either refuse to speak out or support Trump in pardoning these people. You are not the real conservatives. You are not the real Republicans, because we Republicans, we conservatives, we people on the right, we're supposed to stand for law and order, aren't we? Aren't we pro-police? Then explain to me, as Nicole said, how we, or at least the leader of our party, is going to take a bunch of thugs who injured 150 cops. And by the way, there was a cop who died, Brian Sicknick, the next day from a stroke, and I believe 4 others that took their own lives because of the trauma on that, not to mention Ashley Babbitt, who was a Trump supporter, who got killed. Are we the party of law and order? Well, then
No.
why don't we support these thugs, these criminals serving their full sentences?
They're not the party of law and order. They try to present that they're the party of law and order, but even throughout this election campaign, the only party that was talking about civil war was the conservative Republican Party. And I guarantee you, had Trump lost, had Kamala Harris emerged victorious, the peaceful certification that we saw the other day, you would absolutely not have seen that. Now, it may not have been on the scale of January 6, 2020, but there certainly would have been some yahoos out there, who would have tried to protest, because there are enough sick people who support Donald Trump who will believe the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen with no evidence, but will deny the reality of January 6th with visual evidence that's in front of their eyes. There's a sickness involved in that. I don't care what you have to say, the disassociation that you have to say that what's in front of my face is not what I see. But then when somebody who has a track record of telling probably more lies than any politician in the history of our great nation can tell you that an election was stolen with no evidence, with more than 60 court cases denying the fact that the election was stolen, and people still want to believe that, there's a sickness involved in that. And that's where we are, unfortunately, as a country right now.
Can I piggyback on what Kevin just said about that?
You can go right ahead, and I'll jump in after you, Tarris. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. I think we're all, and I agree with the majority of what everybody said, because January 6th was completely not good for our country. It was horrible. When I watched it, because I watched it from I watched it from somebody who was there's office. So how would I say this? We're forgetting about the Senate congressional hearings that take place. You guys, I don't get what you're saying.
Tarris, what hearings are you talking about? I know, first of all, just to clarify something, forgive me for interrupting, but there was a proposal that Kevin McCarthy and people in my party originally agreed to. In fact, they were negotiating who's going to be on the committee. Well, the first proposal was for an outside commission like 9/11, which Kevin McCarthy cut, which the Republicans didn't want to do. And then there was going to be a congressional committee, and they were willing to set that up with equal numbers of each party, and he killed that as well. So I don't know what committee, the only committee that studied this, and I think did a very effective job, was the January 6th committee. So I have no idea what committee you're referring to.
The January 6th committee, did they find Donald Trump guilty of anything?
Yes,
they came back?
They recommended prosecuted. They sent a referral to the Justice Department. They recommended prosecuting him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what?
I don't have what I need to have. That's why I have my other computer, because I wanted to be able to pull this stuff up and show you real time. Because I watch these C-SPAN interviews of these congressional hearings at night, and I watch them, and I see they had a January 6th congressional hearings, just like they had with Dr. Fauci and all these things after it's all done. And they came back and they found that Donald Trump was not guilty. I'm not mad.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult, but who is the day you're talking about? I've never heard of this.
Look it up.
I know
we can go to another subject. I'm going to look it up before, because I don't want to talk out of context.
Yeah,
well, you know what? Donald Trump. I don't do this a lot, but I'll go ahead and keep it real. Like, Donald Trump was right when he made the statement about there being an enemy within. Where he was wrong was the types of people that he's pointing the finger at. The people behind January 6th are the real enemy from within. And it's not just Donald Trump. So the January 6th committee, and I've got the highlights here, They found a couple of things, numerous things. They found that Trump planned to declare victory regardless of the outcome. How do they know this? Because they talked to people that were in the Trump administration on multiple levels, and they told the January 6th committee that Donald Trump knew, in fact, because everyone behind the scenes was telling him, his lawyers, his campaign managers, the people on his staff were telling him, you lost the election, and there was no credible information out there that would overturn this. He knew this. The January 6th committee clarified this. They also found out or concluded that Donald Trump was aware of the risk. He knew what was happening at January 6th. He knew that people inside of the mob were violent and that they had weapons, and he did nothing. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And so my thing is, just keep it real. Like, I'm not so tied to any political party that I'm going to sit back and make excuses because you caused an insurrection. That is what happened. And I think it's time for good people to stand on business in any space you're in. If you're online, if you're at the barbershop, if you're talking with your family and this comes up, you have a responsibility, in my opinion, to keep it real. This is what happened. It was ugly. And don't back down from that, because the other side is not. So here's my question for you. Who is winning the war of telling the story about January 6th to this point, in your opinion? Because now, in my opinion, it feels like it's MAGA for obvious reasons. Donald Trump just got reelected and they're on the upswing. But what's your take?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of them winning the story of the telling of January 6th. I think what you see is that, and I think this is a flaw in our society these days, and it's a product of our culture and how we operate. People move on from things very quickly, even tragedies. Like, tragedies don't sit with the American public and the consciousness these days in the same ways that it used to. I mean, you can even talk about school shootings. Like, how long does a school shooting? I mean, you can have 25 little babies massacred at a school shooting, and 2 days later we've moved on and we're talking about something else, and we've forgotten the names of the people who were impacted by that. I think January 6th, it falls into that category of where we are just in terms of our consciousness as a people. We are a short attention span society now. We move on quickly to other things. And I think if you talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people have expressed this, that they've moved on from January 6th. Hey, let's move on from January 6th and talk about other things. And it's almost like, it's like Pearl Harbor. Yeah, like we remember Pearl Harbor, from a historical standpoint, but nobody's really talking about Pearl Harbor except for when Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, comes up again. And so I think this is one of those things that's a horrible day in American history, but people have, unfortunately, far too many people have moved on from that, and they're more interested in talking about, the economy, the Bengals missing the playoffs, or whatever the flavor of the day is.
But you know what? I think you're right, Kevin. There is an element of moving on whenever there's an incident. But with January 6th, I'm sensing something different. Not only are people just moving on, but there's a conservative effort to rewrite what actually happened, to retell what actually happened. That's different from people just saying, "Oh, it's the next outrage." Right? Am I the only one picking up on that?
Well,
but you're not wrong.
In that respect, they're losing. I don't think in that respect, I don't think MAGA is winning in terms of trying to rewrite it, because I don't know many people outside of, again, like I said, those MAGA sycophants who believe that this was a day of love, who believe that, this was an FBI plan, or I think these are things that people who traffic in conspiracies, and who I said, quite frankly, I think have a sick mentality, who buy into that and believe that. I think most Americans, do think that it was a horrible thing. Now, whether that's a horrible thing that they want to move on from, I think is a different matter. But I don't think they're successfully rewriting the history of what happened.
I think
my mother had an expression, if I can say, she always used the expression, the good Germans. And she wasn't just referring to Germany. She was using the expression about people, the old saying, the only thing necessary for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. And I think what is most offensive to me is not even the people supporting January, or the thugs and all that. It's the so many leaders in my party, Lindsey Graham, you can list them, the same ones who are running like scared rabbits when those guys attacked the Capitol. How, when somebody like Trump says he's going to pardon these people, or it was a day of love, how can they remain silent? How can anyone with a conscience, I don't care what your political party, remain silent when something like that's being said? I'm sorry, Nathan. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I agree with Phil. I agree with Phil and Kevin. It was wrong. January 6th was wrong all the way around. I don't know too many people who agree that but we're talking about reality. And whenever, that's what I try to do, is bring reality to this show. You guys are in your feelings, which are correct. January 6th was horrible. But as Phil said, Kash Patel, if he gets passed through, the director of the FBI is claiming that this was an FBI and a Department of Justice plant when Nancy Pelosi had control of the National Guard and left them hanging in a parking garage. You don't think that he's really seriously going to do that? So you guys can talk in feelings, but when Kash Patel gets in there, he's going to follow through with what he said. Those are facts. And I'll pass.
Yeah, well, just so you know, the Nancy Pelosi thing has been totally debunked. What happened was the military did not refuse. They didn't want to go there, but before the riot, they didn't want to go there because they felt, and I can understand this, that it would be a bad look, if you will, to see a lot of military people at the time of a presidential vote count. But I mean,
a military presence would have stopped it.
Yeah, I understand that.
He
but
chose.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying Nancy Pelosi. It's a myth that it's a lie that Nancy Pelosi turned that down. That's just not true.
I can't. I hate doing this because you guys are like show me. But while it was going on and days later, I saw TikToks of soldiers, National Guard soldiers, sitting in the garage, pissed off, sitting there for days, pissed off because they couldn't make a move. They didn't know they were there. Were they going to go? Pelosi said no, and they're there. So it's deep. Okay, cool. It's not true. You can't believe what the liberal media says. But
yeah, here's part of the problem. Here's part of the problem of the landscape that we're in, and Tarris said it exactly, and we've gotten into this in past podcasts. There's so much information out there. There's so much video, TikToks, people with podcasts, stuff like that. And here's the problem is people will accept stuff like that with absolutely no vetting of the provider of that information, what their agenda is, the legitimacy of the video or the information that they're presenting, the sources that they got it from. They don't question any of that. They watch those videos and they read it and they swallow it whole. But then when professional journalists who have to operate by ethics and standards and deal with possible lawsuits and things of that nature that force us to have to say, hey, the information that we present has to have sourcing behind it, has to be accurate and as truthful as we know it is, who have actually gone to know how to ask questions and peel back the layers of people's agenda. People question that, but they swallow whole stuff from people they have no idea where it comes from. And this is the type of insanity that we are living in today. Is people want to question the mainstream media, but they'll swallow something from some dude in his basement who has no training and whose sole agenda may be, he might be an anarchist, but you don't know. But you're going to take his video and share it and say that it's truthful. This is insanity, man. This is where we are.
But Kevin, we live in a day where people don't really care about facts. They only care about information that supports how they already feel.
And that's dangerous.
This is how I already feel. Anything that challenges in that, that must be a liberal conspiracy. That must be whatever. And that's where we are these days.
That's what I'm doing. I'm challenging you guys to think of something different, think of a different way of looking at things and outside your echo chamber. And you guys you're saying that I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, how come the mainstream media didn't get dog walked during this election? I'm talking, I got more streams collectively on my little TikTok channel during the election program than CNN did on their entire election day coverage. So I know what you guys are saying about, you had the incredible services and stuff like that, but you want me to believe what you just showed, but you don't want me to believe a live footage from actual ground zero of a place. And say, oh no, that's not true because
I just
it didn't
showed
come
you
from a
live
Bible.
So Tarris,
video.
how do
You're
you
right.
how do
You're
you
right.
know how do
So-
you know how do you know that footage is what it was and where it was from? How do you know that?
Real time, when it's coming on live feed, it was like from this place, and these are Army National Guardists inside of a parking garage. Talking about we're sitting here, we're stuck here, we ain't got no food, we ain't got no direction. Mad. They still have their phones.
And
These are but
I don't
okay.
know what's your point. Okay, so we had some National Guard and some law enforcement that were at the ready, and they were bored because they're trained to rock, but they weren't given the green light. So what, and what's that proof?
Okay, cool. That's what I'm saying. There's
What
so
is that-
much
what's
more
your
different
point in bringing
layers.
it up, though, Terry?
There's so many
You brought
different
it up.
layers to this.
Well, Terry,
There's
no,
different
no,
layers to
Terry,
this.
okay.
Let me remind you all also, because on that day when all of this was going on, people were calling Trump. People within his administration was calling Trump, not Nancy Pelosi, to stop this, do something. He did what? Absolutely nothing for a few hours. He just allowed this to go on. And so, the day after, when all this was over, people were speaking their real truth. Republicans, the Kevin McCarthy's, the Mitch McConnell, saying how horrendous this was and how Trump did absolutely nothing. They wasn't talking about a Nancy Pelosi. They was talking about Trump, and that he brought these people in. He got them charged up. He caused this insurrection. And then as the days went on, their message began to change. And that goes with the politics and the money and everything else. But it just goes to show they just turned into complete doormats. But their original feelings and their original thoughts right after the insurrection was the truth. Everyone blamed Trump.
Right, she's right about that.
He's right.
McCarthy came out.
And this is
He's
really
right.
Kevin McCarthy came out and he pointed a finger directly at Donald Trump.
Senator McConnell?
Mitch
Senator
McConnell
McConnell?
came out and said
Sure
that
did.
Trump was responsible on all levels.
And
These
he
are
said he
all
was going to
facts.
make sure it happened. He said
here's-
Mitch McConnell came out and he said, I'm going to make sure. He said that was an horrible act, and we're going to make sure that the justice is sealed. Senator
the
McConnell was
Justice
the right
Department
guy.
did that.
Here's the sad truth about this, Nathan, is that what we're talking about here is not really about January 6th. What all of this is about is a defense of Donald Trump. That's what this is, plain and simple. It's what we're arguing about. It's why people are willing to believe lies and untruth and whatever. That all this is about is the defense of Donald Trump. And what I can't seem to wrap my mind around is why some people are so beholden, so enamored, so willing to debase themselves and trade in their ethics and morals over a single man. What is it about this man that has people so tripped out that they will go to any extent to defend him? And that's really what this is about. I mean, even in Tarris's opening statement, it was all about, well, the January 6th committee, they couldn't prove Donald Trump. It's all about Donald Trump. Everything that we talk about these days, politics-wise, is about Donald Trump and those who want to defend him at all costs. What's right or wrong, be damned. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about anything else. That is what this all is. Michael Egan in the chat asked me, Kevin, was Hunter's laptop real? Michael, if you want to compare Hunter's laptop to January 6th, buddy, you go ahead and do that. God bless you. Because if you think those things are equivalent, that tells me everything that I need to know about why we are where we are as a country.
Yeah, I don't even understand where people come from with that Hunter laptop.
Was it that the media initially said that it wasn't really a
laptop? Is that what it was?
No, the Hunter laptop, the whole Hunter laptop thing, whether real or otherwise, again, I'm not saying Hunter laptop or Hunter Biden doesn't deserve to face the consequences for whatever he's done. I'm not saying that. But you got to understand the whole Hunter Biden laptop thing came from a deflection tactic to get the heat off Donald Trump, put something on Joe Biden to distract the American people from talking about things like January 6th and all the other crimes that Donald Trump does. It was a deflection tactic, pure and simple. It's exactly what Michael Egan did in the chat. It's a distraction to keep you from talking about the real things that are impacting our democracy And that's all that it was entitled to do. A deflection tactic for Donald Trump. And that's all these conversations are. Defend him at all costs.
Yeah, I'm with it. Makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I've said as much. Yeah, for sure. People keep bringing up the Hunter laptop. I'm like, so what did I don't understand? He took his laptop to be serviced. He didn't go back and get it. Somebody took his laptop and sold it to some people on the conservative side. They broke the laptop and then started taking the information and putting it out there. That's all I understand it to be. There was
what they were trying to connect, what they were trying to do with the laptop was connect Hunter Biden's activity with businesses and things of that nature overseas to Joe Biden. Essentially say that Joe Biden was trading in his favors for the presidency. What I find ironic about that is that the same people on the right who wanted to do that about Joe Biden have no problems with how Donald Trump has eviscerated the emoluments clause and a whole other things, how he's abused the presidency to enrich his family and himself and his buddies throughout his presidency. So it smacks of hypocrisy to make a big deal out of the Hunter Biden laptop because you want to link that to Joe Biden, but you have nothing to say about the abuses that Donald Trump has done. Hell, that's why he didn't want to show his tax returns and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so it's laughable, again, the extent to which these people will go for this man. And it defies explanation.
It's almost like they're personally invested in it. Because I know Michael, he and I have shared some information. Michael, as I told you before, you ain't reliable, bro, because you traffic in a lot of disinformation and lies. And I'm like, wow, I know what Trump is getting out of it. I know what his billionaire buddies are getting out of it. But what is you getting out of it? You're getting nothing out of this defense of Donald Trump whatsoever. You're not even going to get public policy that would favor you and your economic situation and your family. So it's like a feeling. It's like I'm a part of the gang that's winning. So I'm going to do the bidding of the gang or whatever the hell they're thinking. I just don't understand people that argue in defense of a man and you get nothing out of it whatsoever.
Can I respond to Kevin's question? He doesn't understand why people follow this guy. Well, I think history tells us you can go through, you name the country where where dictators have come to power, and maybe it's a charismatic thing. Who knows what it is, but for whatever reason, certain people, and they're always con guys like Trump, certain people just have the ability to get people almost hypnotically to believe them. Okay, and Trump, to his credit, is one of those guys. I think I might have mentioned before, when I was a prosecutor, I kind of specialized in white collar crime, and I prosecuted a lot of con guys. And as soon as I heard Trump, when he was running in 2016, I said, this is a con guy. But to use an expression, I had a case once, the guy was kind of a small time guy, and the judge was talking to us in chambers. He goes, he's a con man with a small C. Well, see, Donald Trump is a con man with a very capital C. And he follows the pattern of past dictators that, for whatever reason, are able to almost hypnotically draw people in and believe anything he says.
It's that. But you know what? Let's be honest here. Humans are very selfish creatures. We real basic. You got a lot of people who, especially inside of the Republican Party, that are going along with it. Because
I talk about the public, just to be clear, Nathan. The people in my party, they're just plain hypocrites, and as I said before, good Germans. They know better. They know better.
What I don't, you're right about that, and thanks for the clarification. But not only should we focus on Trump, but we also got to focus on his co-conspirators, his buddies that were willing to go along with it. You got elected officials that were willing to go along with it. You got people that were willing to stand in as fake electors in a scheme to try to steal the will of the people's vote. All those individuals should be called out, and we should never forget what they really are. And they're self-motivated. They're helping Donald Trump because they're hoping to get something out of it, much like we see with these big tech giants. But before we go there, I want to play a little clip because Kamala Harris continues to be disrespected. In my humble opinion, when I hear people mispronouncing her name on purpose, they're not only disrespecting her, they're disrespecting the idea of a woman of color being in a leadership position. So a lot of people have been talking about what happened when she was doing her duty and swearing in the new Senate members. But something interesting happened. Check this out.
Hi. Do you want to come here, Bruce?
So recently somebody...
One second.
Hi. Do you want to come here, Bruce? In the middle? Scoot over a little? No. It's okay. Yeah, we're right. Don't worry. Okay. Okay.
So and the video was a little bit smaller. Maybe you didn't see it, but she's doing her duty as the president of the Senate, presiding over the ceremonies. She was swearing in a newly elected senator, and the senator's husband was the one who was holding the Bible, which, you know, a lot of people do that for their spouse. It makes perfect sense. But a lot of people are making a big deal out of the fact that he refused to shake her hand, and people are saying that he refused to even look at her. And people are saying, you know, this is a race issue because she's a black woman, because she's a Democrat. And it just goes to show you, you know, the incredible burdens and issues that black women of color in leadership have to deal with. This ain't just a Kamala thing. You got sisters dealing with this on their job on a daily basis. But I want to get your thoughts about this. Is this just a straight up racist that didn't want to shake a black woman's hand?
I would say that it's tough to know for 100% what someone's motivation is or what's in their mind in a given moment. It does. I'll say this: it doesn't look good. It doesn't look very statesman. Although it's not the elected official themselves, it's the spouse of the elected official. I mean, there's a certain amount of decorum and respect that you should show in those situations, regardless of, you know, what one's feelings might be for one political party or the other. Hey, that's the part of, hey, we put in a good fight. You know, you win, I lost. However, at the end of the day, we shake hands and we try to move forward. Like that. That's how it should be done. Unfortunately, in our country, we're getting farther and farther away from our ability as we become more divided in these elections. Every election seemingly becomes more high stakes, that we have a much harder time shaking hands once it's all said and done. You know, I don't know whether this guy is a racist. I don't know whether he's a misogynist or a woman hater or any of that. It's tough to glean that from a situation where a guy doesn't shake her hands. He might just not like Kamala Harris. He might not just like Democrats. Who knows? Like, I think it is a leap, to be fair, to take it beyond that, not knowing based off of what you see there.
You know what this reminds me of?
He chose that, so he leaves himself open to those opinions and interpretations of how people are going to look at it.
I'll tell you what this reminded me of. Do you guys remember when Obama gave, I think it was a State of the Union speech, and in the middle, after he stated some comment, a Republican congressman, stands up and screams, "You lie!
You're a liar!" Yeah, I remember that.
Which, by the way, he ended up using that to fundraise and make tons of money, which says something about our country or my party. But what was so awful and distasteful about it was just plain rude and disrespectful. I mean, and this kind of follows up what Kevin just said, but what the hell people are we becoming? Okay, we riot because our guy didn't win the election. We yell, we stand up and are rude to the president of the United States. No respect. This is the same kind of thing. And you know, what do we trace it to? Maybe back to Newt Gingrich and some things he and others did just to plainly embarrass Clinton with no real basis for it. And of course, Trump has displayed the worst kind of rude and disrespectful behavior time after time, whether it's his nicknames, his insults about individuals, insults about immigrants. This is the model that we've been given. You remember the time that the some congressman actually body slammed a reporter to the ground because he didn't like the question or something, and Trump, of course, followed that up by kind of applauding the guy. This this is what we're living through, and I think it all ties together.
I'm going to say, I'm going to take R for racist. To me, there is no reason, absolutely no reason, to have not shaken Kamala Harris's hand. She's the vice president. She's female. I mean, it was not only disrespectful, classless, but it was no need for that. And I'm trying to think in my head, what would make me not shake someone's hand that extend their hand out to me? You know what I mean? Like, what does it take to do that? Like, I would have to have like true disdain. Like, you've done something to me, or you abused me, or hurt my family. I'm gonna venture to say that she did nothing personal to that man. So for him to just outright deny an extended hand from the vice president of these United States in a ceremony, that's a public. I mean, it was incredibly rude, of course. But I mean, what would make you do that? What would make you do that? It's ugly in all means. And to me, it's just like, excuse me, sir, your racism is showing. That's how I feel. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it.
Oh, my turn. Thank you. I don't think it's racism at all. I think Kevin hit it on the nail. She's a Democrat. This guy does not like Democrats. And you guys, would you shake Donald Trump's hand? TT. If Donald Trump came at you,
it's not TT, it's TNT.
TNT. I'm sorry.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. The president of the United States, I would. If he extended his hand out to me, why would I not? Now, I may not want to take a picture with him and all this other stuff. I probably could pass, very politely, but he is still the president of the United States. I was just at a convention in Vegas where the president, Biden, was there like feet away from me. And although, I voted for him, but he wasn't like my first choice type thing. I was excited to see him. How many people can say that they were feet away from the president of the United States? Not too many people in this country have that type of opportunity. So when that opportunity presents itself and you're meeting such a high figure of the country, then that's an honorable and respectful thing, and it is only right, I think.
I'm glad that you use that.
Everybody isn't cut from the same cloth,
and I'm glad that you use that exact example. Joe Biden came to Northern Kentucky for the Brent Spitz Bridge, and several of us had a chance to walk in his presence. I turned it down because I wouldn't touch his hand. Y'all talk about standing on business. This man stood up there on business with a Bible in his hand and a cane in the other hand. Which one was he supposed to drop to shake Kamala's weak attempt for a handshake? I watched it. And we talk about in classes, Project 1099 is something I'm working on with the group of individuals, kids from age third grade to ninth grade. And we teach classes on we're going to teach classes on how to shake hands properly. She came in, and you never know the backstory between these two people. And he's got a Bible in one hand and a cane in the other. And she, what? I saw his wife reach for the Bible to try to take the Bible so he could shake her hand. I saw that too. But she came in with this kind of weak little handshake, like disrespectful, weak handshake.
Oh, it's her fault.
No, I'm not saying it's nobody's fault. I'm saying he stood on business. He didn't want to shake her hand. He didn't want to shake her hand. What's racist about not wanting to shake somebody's hand that he didn't like? He don't like her. It's not racist. Why does Democrats make everything about race?
Why you don't like her? Why you don't like her? Why you don't like her?
Because she was.
Here's what I would say. Here's the danger of sort of like where we are, and I think we got to step back and sort of see the 30,000-foot view of where we are culturally, politically, and a whole lot of other things. Because a lot of things that people are saying in this group are true. And I say a lot of things can be true at the same time. Again, I start out by saying we don't know what was in this guy's mind. We don't know what his motive is. We can speculate, but the reality is we don't know. Nobody can say for 100% what he was thinking, what his motivations were. Why? Because we aren't him, and he hasn't said, at least as far as I know. So we are left to glean what we think based off of what we see. And we all interpret that basically differently, depending on what lens and prism that we're coming at it from. So here's why this is dangerous. So T.Nicole said she would shake President Trump's hand if he came. She wouldn't take a picture with him. Well, why wouldn't you take a picture with him? For the same reason that some people might be hesitant about shaking his hand, because if people see you do that in the tribalistic environment that we are in now, people are going to judge you based on the fact that you shook his hand. Well, I don't understand why T.Nicole is shaking his hand. I wouldn't have shook his hand. And that's how people come at these things now. In this social media environment where everything is put out there on the internet, people are looking at it and judging your motives and why you did something. It is dangerous. A handshake can be dangerous to you and to your reputation. It can be. Nathan, this also goes back to what you were saying the other day when we were talking about when Joe Biden had Donald Trump in the office. You felt like Joe Biden should have stood on business, to use Tarris's. He should have stood on his business, and he should have did this, that, or the other, and he didn't. We were arguing there. Joe Biden took the statesman approach, right? He did what a president should do. He should do the decorum. You had some issues with that because you felt like he should have did on business, and you said people see that as fake, right? People see that as fake. So this is the environment that we're in now. So when you see this non-handshake, you got to understand that there are a lot of things that are in that mix, most of which that we don't know. And the fact that we're having this conversation trying to assess this guy's motives,
Kevin,
is
I
everything.
wouldn't even trip about that because, for one, like myself, I'm just a single mom in Cincinnati. It's like nobody's gonna make a big hoorah like, oh, you was like, no. And this guy right here, nobody knows him from a can of paint. For him to go out of his way to just like everybody else that attended this ceremony, it shook her hand. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, just for him to go out of his way, it speaks to his character.
This gentleman,
it's not far-fetched for me to sit up here and think like, yeah, you have some isms probably, because why would you not shake her hand? So you can say,
I know a lot of people that wouldn't shake Donald Trump's hand,
but
he shook Joe Biden's hand.
That he could be racist, that he could be sexist, that he could be so party aligned that he can't deal with any Democrats, even though it's Democrats all in that chambers. I'm sure he should shake other Democrats' hands, but this particular one, this black woman, he can't have any associations with. We could just say all that too, but whatever. It speaks to his character. That's what I'm saying.
It certainly does. And I just want to clear something up because Tarris, you tried to make this point. I think Michael is in the chat talking about, well, he had a Bible in one hand and a cane in another, and clearly he put his hands in his pockets. So
after his wife took it, his wife took the Bible,
he still could have shook her hand at that point. So what was it? I just want to make this point. We don't know what was in his heart, but we do know that there was nothing in his hands. And if he wanted to, he could have shook her hand. He also could have looked her in her face. And I think that, well, until he puts out a statement, he's open to public opinion. So it could be that it was racism. It could be to what the point that Kevin made, which I think is an interesting point. Tribalism. Like if I'm taking a picture with you, you're a Democrat, and I don't want to be seen taking a picture with a Democrat. It could very well be that. But whatever the case may be, I think we can all agree that this shows a lack of class. Can we agree on that?
Yeah. Lack of respect, a lack of respect, and a lack of class.
A lack of okay.
Yeah,
I gotta disagree.
I don't think there's any disagreement there on that.
No, there's some disagreement.
I disagree.
Well, I don't think you can get around the fact that whatever his motives were, it was rude, it was disrespectful, because the decorum in that situation is to, if someone extends you a hand, or you're in that situation, you should
That's the decorum in any situation, almost any situation.
Because I think there's a difference.
A social event, and somebody comes up and offers their hand, you shake their hand. That is being polite and respectful.
Right.
This guy, in my opinion, is no different than that congressman who yelled at during Obama's speech. Well, I don't know his motives. I'm guessing it's like you said. I think it's probably tribal, meaning I won't even address somebody who's in the other party or is liberal, whatever the heck it is. But no matter what, he was rude and disrespectful.
I think it's both.
I think there's a difference.
Can I say you guys are right. You guys are absolutely right about the tribalism and the rudeness of it. But just how much you guys do not like Donald Trump. And you guys know people that don't like Donald Trump. People do not like Kamala Harris as well.
Let me explain the difference. Let me explain the difference, Tarris.
There's no difference.
To get to T.Nicole's point, about what does it take to move one to not want to shake someone's hand or be associated with them in some way. I think there's a difference between disagreeing with somebody's politics, right? Or that's just like, I don't like Pittsburgh Steelers fans, but I run into Pittsburgh Steelers fans at many a tailgate at Cincinnati Bengals games, and we slap up, we dap up. I hope they lose. I can't stand them. I got a brother who's a Steelers fan. I got a problem with him.
What?
But I'm not gonna be
want to hear your dirty. Listen, we don't want to hear your dirty laundry.
I'm not gonna be rude to them beyond just the playful gamesmanship that goes along with that. What I do have a problem with is when you have moral character flaws or things that you have done that are egregious to a certain degree. I think that's different. So,
Right.
A criminal or a murderer, someone who has done something personally wrong to you, I could see you maybe saying, "Yeah, I'm not gonna shake that person's hand
Or
because
you're
they've
an
done."
insurrectionist.
Yeah.
Can we stop with the racism
so-
though? Can we stop saying everything is racist? That's my problem with the
That's
Democratic Party. Everything is
that's
racist.
where I
This was
kind of
nothing to do
agree
with
with
race.
you, Tarris, is we don't
How
know.
do you
that.
know? How
We
do
don't
you
know.
know?
Yeah, we don't know, and there's
You don't
enough.
That's the
history.
default button for everybody. That's the default button for
Whatever,
the black
brother.
community, I believe,
You
is
need to stop.
racism.
I hope
Everything
you
that comes up is
have
racism,
as much
racism,
energy
racism.
for these Republicans and what they're gonna
I
do
got
for
the
black
same
folks
energy for
as you
Republicans.
do
I
for
got
the
the
energy
same
you have for
energy for
Democrats.
Republicans.
All the effort you took to bring a few black men over, now keep that same energy and make sure these Republicans do something for black folks. Where's
Watch me.
entrepreneurship jobs?
Watch.
Now I want you. I want to hear you be calling on that. I want that same energy because it's about
Watch
to
me.
be. It's about to be on their terms and see what it is.
And you guarantee you'll get that from me. You'll get that from me. You'll get that from me. But I just think the Democratic Party, every time I hear racism, that is exactly why you guys got beaten this election.
A reality. What you
That's
talking
exactly
about,
why
reality?
you guys got beaten this election.
Racism is a reality in this country. It always has been.
That's why you guys got beat. And as long as you guys hang on to that racism, you're going to continue to get beat.
When it is a part of the issue, yes. Don't sit up here and try to use that tactic of the race card or whatever just to try to lighten and make it ineffective. It is an issue in this country. As long as we have the George Floyds and the different things that's happening to black people in 2024, 2025, please do not tell me to cancel any of that type of subject matter because it is a problem. Until we get justice, until we get what we deserve and respect and everything else, we're going to fight for that. Our ancestors is rolling in their graves if we don't fight for this type of fight. Don't sit up here and act like we have overcame everything when there are still issues in this country where as it relates to race. And so I'm not going for that. And don't try.
So if the Democratic Party keeps addressing race as everything and that's their automatic default button, they're going to continue to keep losing.
You're not going to suppress. And see, that's what they're trying to do with the whole,
you're not even hearing me, TNT. As long as the Democratic Party is their default button is racism, they're going to continue to keep losing elections.
That's an over-exaggeration. That's an over-exaggeration.
Yeah, that's not
That's an over-exaggeration, and
that's what this handshake is about. That's what Kamala Harris's handshake is about. Racism. That's the first thing.
No, it's about rudeness.
Oh, he's racist. He's racist. Oh, the big bad racist. The racist. Why are we so afraid of white people? I'm not afraid of nobody white. You bring me the best white person, and if they don't cheat
and I'm not afraid of power either.
Can I ask you a question, Tarris?
Yes.
What evidence do you have that it wasn't racist?
Okay.
There is none.
But once again, I'm gonna say this again. Really. The Democrats, when their default racism, this has no evidence of it is being racism. So the first thing that the Democrats do is say, "Oh, it's racism. Let's cry racism." We don't even know what his dude's background is or anything like that.
Do you know why that is?
What Democrat?
That's not because it's happening in a vacuum. That's because there's a history with Republicans, contemporary modern history of them trying to trivialize, demonize, ridicule Black women. They did it with Kamala by messing up her name all through the campaign. So it's not coming from just thin air. But let me go back and answer a question here. Because somebody asked the question like, would I shake Donald Trump's hand? and I've been listening to what you guys have been sharing and thinking about it. So if I was in this context as the gentleman we're talking about, my wife was just reelected as a U.S. senator, and we're going before the president of the Senate, who happens to be a Democrat, and I'm a Republican. But let me flip it. Let's say my wife and I are Democrats, and the Republican president is a senator. The president of the Senate, the president of the Senate is a Republican, right? Like let's flip it. And it was Donald Trump. First, I think it's a false equivalency. Comparing Donald Trump to Kamala Harris is a false equivalency. Kamala Harris has never done the thing that Donald Trump has done. So me personally, no, I would not want to shake his hand. I would not shake his hand. I wouldn't shake his hand in a back alley. I wouldn't shake his hand if he knocked on my doorstep, and I wouldn't shake his hand in some kind of swearing in ceremony. That has nothing to do with him being a Republican at all. I got plenty of Republican friends.
So why can't it be the same with
Like
the same
Phil Heimlich, right?
The reason why I wouldn't shake his hand, real quickly, and I'll give it back to the crew, but the reason why I wouldn't shake his hand is because he's a liar, because he's an adjudicated rapist, and he's an insurrectionist. That's the reason why I wouldn't shake his hand.
Okay.
Party affiliation has nothing to do with it for me. I can feel the same way about a Democrat. Let a Democrat do the same things that Donald Trump did. I ain't shaking his hand either.
But we can go back and forth all day long about Kamala, why we don't like Kamala, and why I can say I don't like Kamala because she cosplay and being black, and she's really I could go down a list of things about Kamala, and we would disagree. But that has nothing to do with racism, which was the first thing that people posted. The first people posted, he did not shake her hand because she's black, and it's racist. And the Democrats are going to continue to keep losing when they go. Pick a new narrative. Every time Republicans hear you guys talk about race and racism, we're like, we got them. We got them.
Republicans don't ever want to. They don't ever want to talk about race, whether it's legitimate or not, Tarris. Right. So we can just add that into the list.
I'm here to talk about race anytime I want.
Let me speak.
And keep it truth and be truthful.
Let me speak. Let me get my point out. Every time people of color bring up something, whether they see it as legitimate or not, they always call it playing the race card. It 100% of the time. Now, I am one who is a believer that when we bring racial issues to the forefront, we should have some conclusive proof. Like there's some race battles that are worth fighting, and others that are not. In my opinion, this one with Kamala Harris is not one, mainly because we don't know that for a fact. Now, you can say 74-year-old white guy, probably from that era, that looks like a duck, walks like a duck, then it probably is a duck, right? Like a lot of people are drawing that conclusion, and that's why they're saying it. But the bottom line is there's no actual evidence to support that it's racist or that it was sexist. There is evidence to support, to some degree, that it was rude and that it was a lack of decorum. And I think most everybody can agree with that. But for a lot of people, that's not enough. It's not enough to just simply say that it was rude, regardless, whether you're black, white, woman, or a man, that in that type of environment, to not shake the person's hand is rude, regardless. Like that should be the beginning and the end of the conversation. But I do agree that when we interject race and sex into that conversation, it allows people to get off the boat that we should all be on in saying that this dude was wrong, that there should be round condemnation of the action, regardless. But then when you start talking about, well, he did it because she's a woman or he did it because she's black, now that allows people to begin to switch up the narrative and to go away from the fact that collectively we can agree that what he did was wrong. Right. And now we're talking about all of these other things because through our prism of how we're looking at it, we want to win this particular race or gender battle. I think to some degree, well, I don't agree with everything that Tarris said. I think to some degree, that's the point that he's trying to make in here. The other thing I'll say, then I'll shut up, is one's justification for not shaking one's hand. I think Tarris might have said this, something about it being subjective. We can all agree or disagree with it. But the reasons that you say that you wouldn't shake Donald Trump's hand are justified in your mind, Nathan. And if you did that, you would be criticized by people who disagree with your decision not to shake his hand. Okay. And you would be fine. You would say, hey, that comes with it. I'm going to stand on what I stand on. This guy, for whatever reason, and again, we don't know, for whatever reason, he chose not to shake her hand, was justified in his mind. Even if that was racism, right? Even if it was racism, it's like, I'm not going to shake this black person's hand for whatever reason. In his mind, that was justified. We don't have to agree.
We always will never know because it's all in their minds, right? Unless they say the N-word, then it's officially racism. I mean, it has
but
so many layers.
Nicole, it's a fool's errand to go down that because you can't get inside the minds of somebody. And so what happens when you're wrong? What happens when you call it out racism and it ain't that and you're wrong? That
thank you, Kevin.
What happens when you're
judge it on many factors. We don't have all the information, but let's just say, you know, he's in the hallway and he shook another Democrat's hand. You know what I'm saying? So then that kind of X out the whole private thing that, you know, you may not have liked Kamala Harris, whatever, and you try to say that she's a Democrat and that's the reason why, but you're out here in the hallway and you're meeting with other, you know, congressmen and congresswomen, and they're both back, and you're not that stale, you know, with them. So that anything could be, you know, can lead to the idea that, you know, possibly racism was a factor, sexism was a factor, just being an asshole could be a factor. I mean, all of those could be true at once, but I'm not going to let people like disregard that. Like that shouldn't even be a subject of how dare you, you know, bring that into the subject matter when you have no proof. No, it's enough for me to lend he's a white man. This is a black woman who has a title of vice president, and you rejected her. You like totally rejected her. And I don't know too many situations where people would do that. You know what I mean? It's just out of the ordinary.
There are a lot of situations where people would
unhealthy disdain for this particular person for whatever reason, whether it's sexist, whatever. But it's beyond like what regular people would do in that type of situation, and that calls to question his character. And I'm allowed to do that, whether you like it or
yes, you're allowed. I'm not saying anybody's not allowed to do that. I'm not saying anybody's not allowed to have their opinion on it. But what I'm saying is we can't make definitive statements like that is what this is when you don't have. That's your opinion. Yes. That's 100% your opinion, but it may not be 100% fact. It may not be 100% fact. And this goes back to the conversations that we've had going on today, this rejection of facts for what people want to believe. And we cannot be hypocritical and say that if a white person wants to size up a black person because of how they look or they think, we get upset about that as black people. They ain't got no evidence to think that we're a thug or that we're this, that, or the other because I wear a hoodie. We get upset about that. But because a 74-year-old white man wants to shake Kamala Harris's hand, he's a racist. It's the same type of jumping to conclusions without evidence. It's the same type of jumping to conclusion without evidence.
But you know, I think we do have evidence though. I mean, birds of a feather flock together. Birds of a feather flock together.
Did his wife shake her hand? Did his wife shake her hand?
We just went through a campaign.
Did his wife shake her hand?
Yes, she did.
Wife shook hand. Yeah, wife shook hand.
That's not the issue, though.
Okay, so birds of a feather.
Is he a Republican?
That's his wife.
Is he a Republican? That's his political party. That's
his wife a Republican. His wife is an elected Republican.
Three times.
Three times elected. People don't know this dude from a can of paint.
They don't
need the Bible 3 times.
They don't need to.
You have more incentive not to shake Kamala Harris's hand.
Evidence. We have the anecdotal evidence of what just happened during the last 3 months when this black woman was running, and she had to endure racist attack after racist attack after racist attack. We have a Republican Party that in contemporary history has a history of attacking educated black women, people of color in positions of leadership. If it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's a duck. All the man has to do is
let's remember that next time. Let's remember that next time something gets thrown at black people. Let's remember that the next time a white person throws something at black people and they say, well, if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, then it must be a duck. Let's not call that racist.
All he has to do is put out a statement and clarify. And until he does that, people are going to speculate and give their opinions. That's all he got to do. If it was me, I put out a statement saying,
somebody could simply ask why I did it. But you know what, Nathan, that won't be enough. that won't be enough because at this point, people
How do
have
you know it
already
won't be
made
enough? Because he hasn't done
people
it.
have already made up. People have the same way that you know he's a racist. The same way that you know he's the same way that you know he's a racist is how I know it ain't gonna make a difference
So
no
so
matter
you
what he
telling
say
me
with
that if
people.
he put out a statement and clarified it, that would have no impact whatsoever?
No, because those people who believe that it's racist and what he did was racist are going to stick to that regardless of what he just saying that. Of course he's not going to admit that he's a racist.
It could be.
Why
Some people
would
can
he?
say that. But
Why
some
would he?
people
There you go.
wait.
Why
Let's
would
not
he?
Y'all making
wait,
all
hold
my
on.
points, bro.
Some
Y'all
people
making all
might
my
feel
points.
that way, Kevin. Absolutely. And some people will be like, oh, he clarified it. He put a statement out, and that will satisfy them.
T.Nicole, tell the truth now. Keep it real. If he came out and said, you know what, I seen Kamala Harris, I seen her cough in her hand before she came out, and I didn't want to shake her hand. That's the reason I didn't want to shake her hand. You gonna believe that?
Then it'll be like,
He's like, I'm allergic to curry.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a germaphobe. He could have cleaned that up. He could have said that.
He could have said a
people
bunch
are
of things.
germaphobes. And another thing, I would have grace too if maybe he's autistic, because I have a family member who they don't like touch, and I was like introduced to this person. I didn't really know that they had they were autistic, and in that way, so some people don't respond to touch that. So there could be different, but everything that has presented itself thus far, that's not the case. But I mean, he could clearly, like Nathan said, clean that up, and people would respond to that. But the mere fact that he chose not to, and he doesn't care what people think.
He don't care what people think. You know what he has?
At the end of the day,
you know
what you put out there in the atmosphere.
You know what he has to say, Kevin, to clear it up, and it would clear it up for a lot of people. Keep it real. I don't mess with Democrats. Boom. That's all he had to say. I don't mess with Democrats. People would understand it. Sure, you have a lot of people like, nah, he's just making excuses. But a lot of people are like, well, he told you. But to not put out any statement, it leaves people to speculate. We could be right, we could be wrong. We never know.
Yeah, I agree, and that's my point about the danger of the environment that we live in, is because no matter what you do, handshake, picture, conversation, if somebody see you doing it with somebody that they find objectionable, you now have to explain yourself. You now have to give an explanation as to why you're doing this. And then you're open yourself up to, are people going to believe what I said, or are they going to second guess it? That's the nature of where we are today. We went through this with Joe Burrow photo with Donald Trump. Everybody is speculating, is Joe Burrow if he's not, why didn't he come out and say
that was an endorsement?
And guess what? People still love Joe Burrow. They ain't stopped going to Bengals games. They ain't stopped buying his jersey.
But he ain't clarified it, though. But he ain't clarified it, and Nathan ain't satisfied.
I ain't really feeling
that. They forgot about that just like January 6th in 24, 48 hours. So give me a break. Better example.
Let me.
I want Donald Trump to flow through Cincinnati in the circles with everybody here, and I want to see how that goes.
Yeah,
I want to see some handshakes. I want to see some
I'll tell you
I want to see greater Cincinnati's reaction to how y'all.
I'll tell you how I would do that. I, with all due respect, I totally disagree with Nathan about not shaking his hand, because, and again, this may be too much of a distinction, but I can understand you're in a room and there are some people who are going to just go out of their way. Oh, hi, Mr. Trump, I'm this and that. I can understand if you have no respect, as I don't have any respect for his character, everything about him. I'm not going to go up there and make a big effort. But if he held his hand out to me, I don't care who it was, I will shake it, because I think
who you are. Who you are. I ain't shaking your hand.
Do not do so to anybody is disrespectful. Okay. And Nathan, let me finish. Nathan, where do you draw the line? Well, I disagree with him on this issue. Oh, well, no, that's enough. It's got to be 3 issues. Well, he lied 1 time. He lied 5 times. I mean, come on. You're going to have a chart or something, or a graph that says,
in my head and in my heart.
Well, over this line, I don't shake a person's hand. I'm just saying, I don't care if it's
called character.
Care if it's a Nazi guy or whoever it is. If somebody, how much of an enemy or how much I may despise him, If somebody
A
comes
Nazi?
up to me, excuse
Man,
me,
please.
if somebody comes up to me and it just extends his or her hand, I'm going to shake it, because otherwise,
I agree. I disagree.
I'm not doing that.
I ain't either. I
Touching
disagree.
my hand. See, people don't understand the power that they have, and they don't have a strong constitution.
I
Just
think it's
willy-nilly,
manners.
whatever
right?
happened. No. Yeah, in my head, I got a little ledger, and it depends on who you are and what line you cross. I ain't shaking R. Kelly's hand either. That's just me. Now, y'all can do what you want to do. But for me, I stand on business. There's certain things I'm going to do, I'm not going to do. I can pretty much tell you in almost any situation what I'm going to do beforehand, because I have a code. A man should have a code. And I'm not shaking Donald Trump's hand. That don't mean I have to be disrespectful to him.
I think that is
disrespectful.
Let me ask this, Nathan.
Don't shake it. That is disrespectful. It is.
Let me ask you this, Nathan, because this is the critical question to what you just said.
Sure.
Did you throw away your Chocolate Factory album? That's what I want to know. I just want to know.
I ain't listening to it ever again.
That totally went over my head. Somebody's got to explain to me what you just said.
In your deck, in your
R. Kelly.
Buzz, right? When I used to work at the Buzz.
I see. That's what R. Kelly is. All right.
Of course, in that scenario, you have a board op / producer that takes you in and out of your breaks and plays the music. I told him, no R. Kelly. I don't want to hear none of that nonsense. Now, they didn't always play. Sometimes they would play just to get back at me, but I don't want nothing to do with it. No, I'm a grown man with children. I don't listen to pedophile music. I ain't with none of that. Period.
Yeah.
I agree.
The handshake matters. It matters who it's with. It does. It matters who it's with, and it matters the circumstances and the situation that you're in.
Oh yeah,
I think in this environment, under the circumstances that we're talking about, I think a handshake would have been the proper.
I would not stay at a Trump hotel, and I love nice 4-star hotels or whatever. I would not stay because I would be enriching somebody who I think is a crook, and among other things. But to me, there's a difference. That's not a manners issue. That's where my money goes. Donald Trump or anybody, I don't care who he is, R. Kelly, whatever, he comes up to me and says, I'm R. Kelly, or I'm going to shake his hand, because to me, that's matters. You don't judge, you don't decide who you shake hands with based on whether they meet your level of good character.
Yeah, Phil, can I say something? Can I ask Phil a question, please?
I do.
Yeah. I got to ask it. Phil, 2 questions. First question is that I appreciate your honesty, but I would rather someone, this is especially like from a white man, I'd rather them look me in the face and say, I don't like you, than shake my hand like most do and behind my back stab me in the back. That's one thing. And another question is, how do you feel about whenever?
Well, first of all, I don't think that's a good comparison. It's not.
Not to you.
I'm talking about manners. I'm talking about, for example, if Donald Trump was given a State of the Union, or somebody I strongly disagreed with was given a talk, okay, as much as I didn't despise the person, I am not going to stand up and scream at him during it, because to me, that is lowering oneself to his level or her level. I'm not going to do it.
Now, one exception. If I was an elected official, that's different. So now it's not about me. Now it's about the people that are.
Okay, so let's say somebody's giving a speech. Somebody's giving a speech in Cincinnati, which happens all the time. Now, for example, if Mitch McConnell or one of those guys was given a talk, and there was a question and answer, I would stand up and I would say, how could you support which he did, support Donald Trump for president when he insulted your wife with a racial epithet, started a riot that tried to overthrow the government? That's a question. That's during the question and answer time. But I'm not going to stand up in the middle of his talk and scream at him or scream you lie, because to me, that's not the way we're supposed. That's disrespectful. I don't care who it is.
I understand now. I understand.
I did that. I did that. You know what? You brought that up and I forgot until recently. So I went to the RNC in 2016. I did just that. Like the floor on Thursday night when Donald Trump was accepting the nomination, I'm on the floor about 150 feet away from him screaming, "You lie! You lie!" And let me just tell you, buddy, you talking about some heat? You talking about some heat, old boy. Like looking back, I'm like, damn, what got into me? But I was being honest. I'm like,
hold it. You were at the Republican convention in 2016?
I was at the Republican convention, 100 and maybe max 150 feet on the delegate force, surrounded by delegates. There's a video right now on Facebook
You know,
screaming them out.
to me, there's a big difference. I wouldn't agree with that either.
Yeah, but I stand on business. I don't care what
Well,
it is.
let me
and
tell you
who it
something.
is and where
I'll
it
tell you
is.
where
Period.
let me tell you, when you say stand on business, meaning you're saying I'm going to be rude to somebody if I
meaning
totally
that,
disagree. That's what you're saying.
if you're lying, I'm gonna call you out loudly, whether it's at the RNC or at home or at the park or wherever it is. I'm not cutting no corners on that.
Let me tell you something that is a good comparison. Donald Trump at his rallies, especially in the 2016, he was known if somebody was protesting him or something, he would tell people, beat the crap out of the guy, and I'll pay your attorney's fees.
I was hoping for it. I was ready.
Yeah,
and
well, I'll tell you something. To me, that is an extreme example of what we're talking about, where somebody disagrees with you, and you're either going to use violence or you're just going to be out and out rude. And I am not going to be rude to anybody. I don't care how much I dislike them.
The delegates were rude to me.
Because you're going on his level. You're going on his level. You're lowering yourself. You're lowering yourself to that person's level when you do that.
Oh no, I'm rising.
I appreciate your answer, Phil. I just have one question for Phil as well. How do you feel whenever you're in black spaces, whenever you hear racism come up? Because when I talk to my white adjacent friends, and I'm like, what's the first thing that you hear when you hear somebody pull the race card? They automatically go on defense. That's what I hear. I would just like to hear what you hear whenever you, being a white man, when someone black says, well, that's racist. Where is your automatic first response, if you don't mind sharing?
But you're saying when a black person says something racist or claims that a particular thing is racist?
Claims a particular thing is racist that you might not even think is racist. But I mean, just what's the first thing that goes on your head? Because I ask a lot of my white clients that too. It's like, with everything right, first racist, what's your first thought? And there's no wrong answer. I'm just asking. Well,
first of all, I could, if you're talking about what's in my head, I guess it depends on the instance. Now, I'll agree with you, Tarris, on something you said before, which is I do think that, and I spoke out strongly on this on city council, where I felt people played the race card all the time. And in effect, when you do that, it loses the impact of when there is genuine racism. So if you're asking me, it depends on the situation. But I spoke out publicly many times against using what I perceived and believed people using the race card.
Yeah. And I'm thank you for your honest answer. The reason why I'm asking, because whenever I'm moving in spaces, and I could say something is racist, that reverse racism, if you will. I just got into my swearing in ceremony. I took a Bible with me because I wanted to be sworn with the Bible. You think I got sworn in with the Bible? Absolutely not.
What happened?
Absolutely. I'm not even going to go into that because we're not going to do that. I'm not pulling the race card. My family came up, my sisters came up, my brothers came up. I had a full place there for me so I could use my mother's Bible so I could get sworn in on. You think I got sworn in on a Bible? And it's not a racist thing. It's a tribalistic thing.
What happened?
Let's go to do what? I'm not going. I mean, I'm not done fighting, so I'm not going to dispel all this right now. I'm not.
Are you saying? Hold it. Are you saying you got sworn in on the Quran? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry, I got sworn in on a nothing.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, I got sworn in. Well, put your hand up. You done it. You're sworn in. I wanted it. It wanted to be special. My family came 2.5 hours to get so I could put my hand on the Bible and be sworn in as an elected official on my mother's Bible. Did I get that? It's not racism. It's tribalism, and it's all about political party. You think they did that? Because I know if they, as a black Republican, if they give me any kind of leeway in this game, it's on.
Let me just say, when we talk about race and we're having these political conversations, what cannot be forgotten is that as far as Black people in this country are concerned, since we've arrived on these shores, racism has been a part of the construct of this country. And so a lot of times when you're talking about whether it's governmental policy or something else that's going on, Phil, you can look at it as people playing the race card, but the reality is most of the policies and things that are established, whether it's in Cincinnati or any other part of this country, the rules and structures were not put in place for people who look like the majority of us on this screen right now. And so with that being the case, that means that for hundreds of years in this country, people who look like you have benefited from primarily a system that was set up for you. Now that doesn't mean that you didn't have to work hard and that there weren't challenges.
It also doesn't mean people don't play the race card. When I say the race card, I mean unjustly accusing.
Yeah, well, you may see it as unjustly in some situations because you don't understand the history. You don't understand the history and the prism from which the people who are complaining about it are coming from.
We were on another show, and I told you that I witnessed in some instances, where a African American police officer had clearly committed violations. Clearly, the evidence was there, but the majority or a bunch of city council members dragged the city manager out and accused him and basically pressured him to put the guy either back on the force or to get rid of the penalty. And the facts were very clear that he had broken the law and broken police rules. That to me is an example of using the race card.
And you know what I said to you on that same show, Phil, is when white people do it, they don't call it the race card, they just call it business. And so I'm not saying that it's right.
What do you mean when white people say?
What I'm saying is, Phil, is that white. There are probably any myriad of white officers who've been dead to right on charges as well, who didn't lose their job. The only thing is there was no need for a whole bunch of white people to show up down at city council and protested. You guys just did it. The good old boy network is another name for it. And so when you see African Americans show up, right, wrong, or indifferent, and they say the same thing, the only thing they're saying is, "Hey, you did it for your buddy."
By the way,
you did it for your buddy. You did it for your buddy or your 10 or 15 buddies. So we're gonna come down here, right, wrong, or indifferent, and make sure you don't do this black man the same way when we know you're not treating your white counterparts. Now, Phil, you don't want to hear that, and you and a lot of white people don't want to accept that, but that is the reality. I've been in journalism in Cincinnati for over 25 years, and I've seen it written about.
And I've been in government I was in government for about 20 years. But just to be clear, when I say playing the race card, it wasn't just black public officials. It was white ones as well, because they were doing it to get votes. So just to be clear, when I say playing the race card, I see white council members do it. White commissioners do
but
it.
It's always a negative connotation. But it's always a negative connotation that's attached to black people when we say that.
Well, I'm attacking
Republicans and white folks in particular. When they say the race card, they ain't talking about themselves. They're not talking about what you just said, Phil. When a white person says the race card, they ain't saying what you just said. When they say the race card, they're talking specifically about people of color.
Well, let's
that's
be
the
clear.
whole reason. That's where the whole term race card come from, because white people don't consider themselves a race.
When I was on city council, I won't name names because one's deceased and blah 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 and so forth. But I can assure you that there were white council members and black council members that both played the race, and I mean play the race card by saying it's a racial thing when it wasn't, and they were doing it to get votes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's my part. That's my thing with the Democratic Party. Whenever I say the Democratic Party, the more they keep leaning into the race card, they're going to keep losing elections. I mean, my approach might come off as crazy, and y'all, because I don't think that you guys hear me, because the echo chamber is so real. But I say this: I say the Democratic Party. I believe that like Nate just said. Why would I want to swear I support the devil? I never said I supported Donald Trump. I'm a Republican. And like I try to tell you, the majority of the Republicans in these executive committees and stuff like that, they're not MAGA. MAGA got us where we are, and we're looking for 2028. And you guys keep holding on to the race card, which is going to hurt you.
Tarris, here's the problem that I have with what you just said. And
yes, I did. I'd vote for this. You know why I voted for Donald Trump? Because I was anti-Kamala Harris. I did not like Kamala Harris at one bit. I would not vote for her. It could be her against anybody. And I voted. It was a statement against Kamala Harris. It wasn't for Donald Trump.
Black woman. I get it.
Tarris,
come on, man.
Here's a problem I have with your stance on that. You talk about the Democrats playing the race card, but what I just said to Phil applies to the Republicans too. They play the race card. They play the race card as well. They just do it in the opposite direction. Look, both parties are leveraging and using race. It's not one over the other. The Southern strategy was all about race, and that was originated by the Republicans, used by Nixon, used by Ronald Reagan,
used by Lyndon B. Johnson. Used
It
by
was a
Lyndon B.
racist.
Johnson, sir.
Hey, Lyndon B. Johnson was a racist before he saw the light.
Absolutely.
I'm not. Hey, if you were a white man, if you were a white person in America, probably up until a certain point, you had some racist ideals and racist tendencies. But some came to see the light, and they changed their ways, and we have a different society than we have now. So yeah, you have racist Democrats, you got racist Republicans, you still got that in 2025.
But you know,
So whenever you automatically pull the race card, that's what I'm saying. Whenever the first thing, like this Kamala Harris with the not being shaking the hand, when the first default is racism, instead of looking at all the other nuances, the first default is, oh, that's just
but you're
racist.
wrong.
That's just
You're
racist.
wrong,
That's just
Tarris.
racist.
Tarris, on this show right now, what you just said didn't happen. When I brought it up, I posed it as a question as to whether some people are saying it's racist or it's something else. When Kevin came on, what his comment was, look, we don't know if this is racism or not. So what happened on this show contradicts what you just said about this topic.
I would disagree. I would disagree, Nathan, because
how can you disagree?
TNT said it was racist. She said it was racist. She said
she's
she said
entitled
if
to
it,
her opinion.
yeah, she's entitled to her opinion. She's entitled to her opinion, just like I'm entitled to my opinion to say
I've
it's
been
not.
listening to you for a while, and I find it very offensive to even like associate and say the race card, like, you know, Black people pain and their struggle and stuff is reduced to a card, and like we're just using it to get over. You know, give me a break. It's too much that goes on in this society, and just like Kevin said, the history. You know, this isn't something that we could just abandon and not deal with in real time and in real situations. And for us, and for you to try to make me feel like that can't be a real situation for this particular real issue in this particular situation. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me how to feel. Just the same as my opinion on this situation is what it is, and it may not be correct, but at the same time, it's how I feel. It's how I'm my perspective on the lens that I'm looking at with this particular situation, and I'm trying to figure out in my head reasonably why this man would not shake, you know, this woman's hand. That is the vice president of the United States. I put myself in his shoes, and I even put myself in a situation with somebody that I don't care for in Trump. And I'm thinking, if Trump extended his hand to me, I would shake it. But I'm different. You know what I'm saying? You different. Everybody's different in those different ways. And we get that. I don't even know why we dragging this whole conversation out as long as we are with this matter. But the point of the matter is to sit up here and what is the narrative that is trying to be created about racism and woke and everything else, and that Democrats need to like cancel this narrative that is hurting them and everything else. No, because now you're saying to disregard our issues and our interests and the things that are real in America that is still impacting us today. And we will not do that. And if the Democrats begin to do that, like the Republicans have definitely done, then they will never win. And because they need this party to move forward. And if you abandon our issues and the things that we care about, and that's what I hear when people say, you know, stop talking about woke, stop talking about racism, and we have to deal with white fragility and white grievance, and now they're even talking about reparations for white folks. Like, give me a break. Right. You know what I'm saying? And you haven't even dealt with reparations for Black people, everybody else, Japanese Americans, Native Americans, Jewish Americans, everybody, even the slave owners got reparations. And when we talk about it, it's divisive. Oh no, and I wasn't a slave owner, but you never reconciled these things. And so, yes, we're going to sit up here. We're going to have these conversations. We're going to speak on it, stand 10 toes on it, like you said. And you're not going to tell us that we can't have our opinions and feelings about our real life situation. And I'm sorry, good brother Phil Heimlich, you may not see it from my perspective, but my runs through me. I feel their pain. I feel it. You know, I live and breathe right now because somebody had to travel through that Atlantic slave trade for me to breathe right now. You know, someone had to endure slavery for me to be here right now. Someone had to endure the inhumanity of segregation for me to be here right now, and for my kids to be here and breathe right now. So I owe it. I owe it to them. You know what I mean? If I don't fight for it, if I don't fight for this, if I don't speak on it, why am I here? It's like, I don't deserve to breathe if I don't fight for this. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make it better for the next generation, like the generation before, try to make it better for me. And so we're not going to sit up here and say that racism don't exist or it's not a problem, or we got to be careful on how we use it.
Right.
You can't tell us how to feel when nothing's been reconciled when it comes directly to African Americans and descendants of enslaved people in America.
True or false? When I hear Republicans talking about anti-DEI, that's playing the race card.
Can I address that?
For white people.
Can I address
plain white people?
Can I address
a lot
that?
of Republicans gets to play the race card when it comes to DEI, but black people can't talk about their real experiences when it comes to discrimination. That makes no sense.
Can I address that?
Sure.
I think there's a lot of, there has been excessive, whatever you want to call it, DEI stuff. I don't believe in quotas and all that. Okay, I don't. And we've talked about this. But I hate to say this, Nathan, but I agree with you. Okay, my party has, especially in this election, has used the DEI as a dog whistle. Okay, they have exaggerated it to the point where states like Florida and others, they pass laws, no critical race theory, no DEI. Well, I mean, they are using that as a dog whistle. And as I've said before, it actually goes against what we conservatives are supposed to believe, which is limited government. Individual schools should be able to teach what they want to, or what their school boards or whatever board of trustees want. It shouldn't be dictated from on high. And I'll tell you something, critical race theory to me is clearly just a, what's the word? It's a dog whistle. Okay, it is playing on racism without saying it, because the truth of the matter is, I mean, it's not like most public schools or private are having special seminars and stuff about critical race theory. In fact, as I understand it, it's kind of a course that you take at some kind of graduate school or something. Okay, yeah. It's all yes, but it pulls people's levers, pulls their strings. And so I agree. It has been used clearly as a racist dog whistle. No question about it.
So, Terry, would you agree with that? Would you agree that DEI, when you hear Republicans talking about DEI, that's the race card for white people?
Do I think that?
Asking Tarris.
Tarris. Once again, here we go. I'm going to look at things, I'm going to speak on a different lens. Whenever in the midterms, in the 2026 midterms, whenever the height of the red wave was supposed to be coming, and we were still talking about things that were happening, the red wave didn't go. I seen, especially in Kentucky, the legislation was passing the anti-DEI laws, and for all state colleges like UK and NKU and University of Louisville, they were passing legislation. So here again, like Phil said, they throw out dog whistle words like CRT and DEI and woke and all these things, and get everybody out on the outside talking Project 2025 buzzwords, fear, while they're writing legislation that is going to be passed, not one session, but 2 sessions. They're working two things ahead of us. So when we're talking about these words and these dog whistles, and we're getting all viscerally and emotionally involved in this, and especially Black Americans get very emotionally involved in these words.
White Americans are very emotionally involved when it comes to DEI.
And they're very emotional. They're very involved in writing legislation to move the needle. So until we get to that point, I'm not.
Can I just seize on something Phil said? And if you ever want to try to understand what privilege looks like, it is privilege in the form of what Phil said when he said, I think that there has been too much DEI already. That is a white privileged thing to say, because anybody who's in a minority position, no way in hell they would agree with what you just said, Phil. But a white man in particular can sit back and say it's enough when 90% of all of the C-suite, probably more than that, it's probably more like 98, 99% of C-suite executives are white men. And white women have benefited way more from affirmative action policies than black people have.
Let's go. Talk about it.
That statistically, white people benefit more from so-called entitlements than black people do. But the narrative is always that black people are getting too much. And there's this narrative that white men are somehow the most discriminated against or all of this type of stuff.
Oh, come on, that's bullshit.
Because they're writing the legislation.
That's part of the rights. Let me finish.
Writing the legislation.
Let me finish. That's part of the rights talking point. And that's part of what's driving this whole white nationalism that we've got right now is these white men are driving this narrative that they're losing. And I always say to myself, hell, if white men are losing, who the hell is winning? Because it sure ain't black men. It sure ain't black women. It sure ain't people who of a brown skin. But we're the ones who are always scapegoated. The billionaire. How many black billionaires are there in America? Right? How many black millionaires are there in America? So when we look at the gaps in education, in wealth, I mean, what was it by? There was some study that said by like what 2030 or something like that, black wealth would be at like 0. Okay, so if that's the case, then where is all of this DEI that's too much? Why is it not producing the results? Well, I know what some of the narrative would be. Well, if daddies were in the house and if black people weren't shooting and killing each other and all of this other, these are the narratives, Phil. And you know, because you sat in meetings where these are probably the playbook that gets played over and over again.
Well, I sat in meetings.
It's insulting to me.
It's
insulting to me for any white man to sit back and say there's been enough progress for black people after 400 years of slavery.
I didn't say that.
Well, that's essentially what you're saying when you're saying, well, DEI, there's enough of it, and I don't believe in quotas. Well, you know what? You guys have 400 years of quotas.
Don't take my words.
400 years of quotas. They were just white quotas.
Listen, what I have no doubt, and I've never said we don't have a race problem. I've never said all the racial problems have been solved. What I have said, and when I was on city council, I told you clear examples where I talked about the police and fire test. Okay, that is an objective test. There's no ability for some supervisors. I don't like this.
That's one example, Phil. But what about where there is no test? What about where there is no test in corporate America where there is no test? Look, black people have bought into this bill of goods for so long that good-hearted white folks are going to do the good thing or going to do the right thing and give us our shot and make everything equal. And the reason why you have, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are the names of the program. You know why you need inclusion? That means people aren't being included. If there was inclusion, there would be no need for diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Well, you're going to let me speak? Are you going to let me speak?
And a need for that type of programming says that all those good-hearted white folk that we think that are out there who are supposed to be doing the right thing and doing right by people of color aren't doing it.
Okay, can I say something now?
Go ahead.
No, I mean, you interrupted me a couple times. If you want to finish, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm quiet.
What I said was that there have been instances where I believe that, and the way I used to say this when I was on city council is I said, it seems to me that in this city that that diversity has replaced excellence. That's the way I would put it. And it doesn't mean. And it doesn't. Well, if you let me finish. I don't say that as an overall, that's always the case. But there were specific instances, and the best example, as I said, as I've used before, is where were objective tests and the promotion was solely based on the test score. There was nothing else considered, but laws were passed that required a female or a black officer, whatever it was, to be promoted, even though their scores were lower. Okay, and to me, that is an excess. That's what I consider to be an excess. So it isn't that I'm against all DEI programs or anything else, but I think there are times, yes, that they have been taken too far. That's what I'm saying.
Can I ask a question?
But is that based upon your feelings, or is that based upon
on what I just gave you an objective example of the police and fire exam?
Okay, that's one small example.
I've got an example I want to.
You want more examples? I'll probably come up with some more.
When you make a statement like you think,
I'll give you another. You want more examples? I'll give you another example. Okay.
No, I want data. I want data to support what you're saying.
When you
That's what
say
I want.
data, I mean, you're saying.
But Kevin, Phil.
I mean, I've given you data. There, at least when I was there was a police and fire exam, and there was a what do you call it, order, an order that consent decree with the city agreed to that basically said, even if a black person or a woman has a lower score than a white male, they get promoted first. That's a fact. That's data. What more do you want?
Okay, I want the data to show that white people, white men or women, are being unfairly, held back.
That's an example. That was an example. I
can give you an example.
Yeah,
I'll give you. I got an example that's happening on NKU campus right now that we're addressing. Black conservatives are being bullied and silenced on campus because they have nowhere to talk. Because everyone on that campus, if there's black conservative,
we're talking about DEI though. That's a different conversation.
That's DEI. Okay, diversity and inclusion. Why can't black conservative talk have a place in diversity and inclusion? Why can black conservatives start talking?
Tarris.
I believe it. Thank you.
And they do. They do. But what I'm saying is,
why are we dealing with this at NKU? There's a group of people that if they go, they have to go and meet in private because they're afraid of being shamed, being afraid of being ostracized in their fraternities and sororities. And we're meeting with these people. We're about to go and meet with legislation and the president of the university to show that they have to do these things because they're being bullied by the left wing philanthropy groups on campus.
Here's what I'll say on that, Tarris.
Trust but verify. I don't believe any of that.
Yeah, just real quick.
I'll show you. You know I will.
Assuming that what you're saying is true.
What I was saying is that DEI is the race card for white people, right? DEI
didn't earn it is what I heard. I heard DEI means did not earn it.
So
when I first heard DEI, I heard it from one of my friends who works on Wall Street, who's a black Wall Street person who works on Wall Street. He said, "Man, you heard what they call them DEI now? Didn't earn it. I about fell out my floor."
Yeah.
What are you going to do in 2025 with Trump's WWW right well connected? Because these are
I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I'm not scared. I'm not scared of the orange man. The orange man is temporary.
I love to hear all of these
are well connected. That's white people's, and that's worked for them for years and years, decades, centuries, or whatever. They've always had the upper hand. The benefits. They're the beneficiary of white wealth and everything else. And we're beneficiaries of poverty and everything else. But at the same time, they run it. And Trump is showing you right now, he's putting in his rich. I mean, this administration is like, they collectively have over $1 billion or $1 trillion, maybe, administrator. They're all rich. They're all well connected, don't really fit these very critical, forms of government. Don't fit those positions. Not really qualified, have no experience, but he's putting them in there, and nobody is sitting up here saying like, "Oh, well, their race."
I'll say it. I'll say it.
Because, no, you like
Trump's hires are DEI. All Trump's cabinet hires are DEI hires.
You're saying that, Tarris, but I bet you the white Republicans ain't saying that.
No, they're not.
Outside of Phil Heimlich, I'm talking about many of the same people who voted for Donald Trump ain't saying that.
I fight against MAGA every single day. I fight against MAGA every single day. I'm a black conservative man. You think these MAGA people like what we're looking at? The most people in the Republican Party who I deal with, who are not MAGA, Donald Trump is 4 years. We're looking past him, and the more you guys keep talking about
use the race card, Tarris. Did you say that MAGA don't like you because you're black? Is that what you're trying
to?
No,
I'm not saying. I'm saying I don't deal with MAGA. I don't even know what I just said on that.
I'm a black conservative.
I'm a black conservative.
MAGA people like me.
That's MAGA people. When it gets down to the core of things, MAGA people will not really. I know that. I'm not stupid.
Oh, so racism is alive and well. It only took us 20 minutes to get to this point. Thank you.
And every time the Democratic Party every time the Democratic Party brings it up, and then I move.
You just brought it up.
Hey, here's the catch-22. Here's the catch-22 that some, I won't paint everybody with the broad brush, but here is the catch-22. Here's the catch-22 that some in white America want to put black people in. Hey, don't talk about race, because if you don't talk about race, it'll go away. You're
Elon Musk.
creating racism. You're
Right.
creating racism by talking about
Oh, yeah.
racism. If you
You're keeping
just
it going.
if you just stop talking about race, maybe things would get better. And black folks are like, okay, we'll give that a try. And you know what happens? Nothing changes
Nothing changed.
until we
They
start
keep voting for
raising hell and
Democrats.
talking
They keep
about
voting
race
for. Y'all
again.
keep punching
The
your card for the
reason is-
Democrat
the
over and
reason
over.
is- The reason is this: is white people in this country are not incentivized in any kind of way to want to change the narrative. Why would they? They control everything. They run everything. I had a white gentleman who I respect, who I actually consider a friend, who actually said this to me in a conversation one time. He said, you know, Kevin, he said, it's not that white people don't want black people to do well. We want y'all to do well. We just don't want you to do better than us.
Right.
We just don't want you to do better than
Or
us.
get anywhere close.
And you know what?
We
And
know that.
I respected the hell out of him for at least having the courage. I hated it. I disagreed with it. I wanted to punch him in the face, but I at least respected him for having the courage to be real about what him and his friends talk about. Hey, we want y'all to stay out of trouble. We just don't want you to have as good. We don't want you telling us what to do. We don't want you running things.
Yeah,
We want to
you
be in
live good.
control.
Just don't live good next to me in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's about running shit.
You
It's about running things.
remember
It's
the-
about running things, in my opinion. It's about
remember the old
you get rich
saying-
about running.
Staying in power. It's all about power.
It's about
Remember-
power.
And-
It's about power.
And definitely after George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and that all happened under the Trump administration. What this country did, it really frightened white people, because there was a lot of people out protesting, really a lot of white people. You know what I'm saying?
Phil,
They
were you
saw
scared?
young white folks.
Phil, were you
And
scared?
they
Phil?
were, no, I'm talking about the young white people. They stood with us, allies, and they marched with us because they saw the injustice. And
The
young white
Antifa?
people started to learn more and more about the history. And that became a problem. And now all of a sudden you start hearing this conversation about, you know, woke and CRT and DEI. They doing everything to stop the education because they don't want their young people to learn about the history. They're talking about, it makes our kids feel bad. So you literally have book banning. We're about to embark on Black History Month, and there's going to be certain states that won't be able to talk about certain subjects in African American history because of the laws being passed to ban books. You know what I'm saying? And to really suppress the truth. And that's a shame in 2025 in this America that we have to whitewash our history. You know, they won't tell Jewish people to forget their history or whitewash any facts about what happened to the Holocaust. But to us, they tell us this didn't happen or slavery wasn't that bad or whatever, to make it so their young people, you know, believe a different truth about the history of this country. And that's not right and that's not fair. But their fear is only about their young people, because I see the young people, the next generation, as being the future that's going to excel us and push us ahead. We were at a paradigm shift where change was on the brink. And then especially with the movement of George Floyd and everything else. And then that became so much and so fearful for real racists. I know you don't like that word, but we have to change the program. We have to change the formula. We have to change education. We have to stop and suppress a lot of things. And that's why you see in all these conversations that makes no sense for McDonald's and these different companies, Walmart, to end DEI. You might as well just put white only signs. You know, I wish we get back to the boycotting, because that's such a disrespect. How do you end diversity, equity, inclusion in your corporation? Like, I don't get that, and I don't understand.
That's how you lose elections.
I don't
TNT,
respect
that's
it.
how you lose
What I
elections.
hope is
That's
that
how you lose elections. Y'all keep going to that narrative, the DEI, and saying, "Oh, McDonald's is wrong,
they
and all these
created
other
the
people is
narrative.
wrong."
Conservatives
Then the
created that
Democratic
narrative.
Party will continue to lose elections,
You know what?
and you
You
will
know
not
what
be able to
McDonald's-
have
you know what McDonald's
legislation,
and
and you
Walmart
won't
and
write
all these
legislation,
places-
and then
all of
like
these
these
places
cabinet
are
picks,
doing-
the cabinet picks that y'all are talking about that are not like Trump's DEI, the cabinet picks you're talking about.
You wanna
You guys
boycott
don't even take into consideration that all these bills is that they have to go through Congress. They have to go through Congress. You guys, I mean, it's a lot of emotions, and I get it because I'm emotional about this too. But like, there's a lot of like Trump's. I believe that Trump's cabinet hires, they're DEI hires. There might not have been any black representation, but I'd rather have black representation in the House and in the Senate, and particularly city council and government and all those kind of things, instead of having some kind of
representation everywhere.
His name is Hakeem Jeffries. We do have representation.
And Tarris, let me say this, brother. Don't say this. Don't say this. That you can say you're entitled to say whatever you want to say, but I'm gonna give you a piece of advice. Don't say this anymore. That because we argue passionately, don't mean that we don't argue with intellect and facts and thoughtfulness. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Sometimes that emotion takes over.
We're in our feelings, and that may be true. But I tell you, I can be in my feelings, brother, and I can break you down and debate you with the facts and the issues as well as I can, and I can raise my voice and I can be passionate. That don't mean I'm not responding in intellect. And I feel like sometimes when you say that on here, that when you say, I get, you may be trying, just say that I'm bringing a different perspective.
I'm trying to bring a different perspective.
But our feelings and how passionate we are about it have nothing to do with the quality and the depth of the argument and the debate that we make.
Okay, whenever I'll go back to the before. Whenever I say that you guys are in an echo chamber, whenever I said on this program the first time, you guys said Kamala Harris is running a very good campaign, and I said, her campaign is horrible. I said that campaign is horrible. I said it's losing in every single facet of the word. And instead of you guys, like when I say the echo chamber, that's what I mean. You guys don't see anything, you don't hear anything except what you guys want. And when I try to introduce an alternative something, you guys take what I'm saying and you twist it around. Whenever I'm from the beginning, I'll say the raw thing first, the truth first, and then I'll come back around and you'll say, oh, well, then you try to catch me up in things. Whenever I'm being truthful and honest and saying racism does exist, but every time the Democratic Party brings up racism, it backfires in their face, and it's going to continue making you guys lose. And then it makes it hard for people on the other side who are trying to fight and fight against racism by being on the inside, helping write legislation. Because that's why I asked Phil the question. As soon as he hears racism, what's the first thing that sparks up into his head? Because the people who, like you said, Nathan, the people who are writing these legislation that trickle down look like Phil.
Racism worked for Republicans because that's pretty much all they use. They use
I can say the same thing about Democrats
against transgender. I mean, that's their political.
Where does racism and transgender have anything to do with either or anything?
They made Hispanic people like they're bad guys and illegal immigrants. They used that all throughout their campaign. So the only people that injected race were the MAGA people. Let's get that straight, because racism was not the pedestal for the Democrats. They were talking about everything else. Speaking on everything else, I wish they was talking more about January 6th and everything that Trump has done, you know what I'm saying? But they stayed above all of that, and people forgot how much of a threat Trump was to this democracy and everything else. Or they made it seem like, oh, it was about the economy and everything else. But as you can see, Trump is talking nothing about the economy. He's talking about buying Canada and Greenland and all these other things, and ending here's massive deportation. He's talking about everything but lowering the price of eggs. You know what I'm saying? Everything but lowering your rent and your mortgage. You know what I'm saying? Everything but. And so we about to see what it is, and
about to find out.
Tarris, here's what you're failing to recognize about the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. The Republicans don't talk about these things because that's not their constituency. Flat out. The Republican constituency is 95% white. And I'm exaggerating that figure probably a little bit. It's probably not that much, but it's in excess predominantly white party. Okay. So they speak to the issues, not of America, but of white America. That's what the Republican Party speaks to. The Democratic Party talks a lot about race. Guess why? Because Black Americans make up a significant part, not the majority, but a significant part of the Democratic Party. Democrats, I've said it plenty of times on this program, cannot win, won't win without the Black vote.
And I will continue to push the needle the other way.
There's not enough white Americans who side with the policies and the views of the Democratic Party to win. And that's because the Democratic Party, more so than the Republican Party, tries to speak to the broader issues of diverse America, right? And that ain't, and a lot of those issues ain't gonna jive with the Republican Party. And that's why I think like black people like you who think that you can infiltrate that party and change it in some way, shape, or form are deluding yourselves. Because the Republican Party is never going to speak to the issues that you care about as a black person. Now they'll talk about some of the issues because there are broader issues that affect us all. But the issues that are going to impact your son or your daughter or your wife or your whomever, they're not talking about those issues. I'm telling you right now, if January 6th had been black people storming the Capitol, the conversation, particularly on the right, would be a whole hell of a lot different. Trump wouldn't be calling it a day of love. He would be calling it thugs and hoodlums. And this is why he'd find some way to say that most of the black people involved was from Haiti or came over from Mexico. This is what they do. This is what, and we need to, and this is my problem. We fail to want to have a genuine conversation about this, about these issues and what's really going on. And it's an insult to the intelligence of people who pay attention to think that we don't see what's going on. You know, look, I was trying to be objective when we were talking earlier about the dude not giving the handshake. And I stand by and agree with a lot of what I said. But I can't lie. If you held a gun to my head and asked me if I thought dude was racist, I say, yeah, probably. If you made me make that choice. But I'm being generous in saying that we don't know that for 100%. And the reason why I say that is because if that had been his wife on the other end, if his wife, the one who swore on that Bible, had been in Kamala Harris's position, and somebody had done that to her, a white man or a black man had done that to her, what do you think his response would have been? If you was in his position and his wife and you didn't want to shake her hand, what do you think he would have said about you? This same 74-year-old white man that we're up here defending today, what would he have said if you had switched reverse position? It was his wife reaching out to shake your hand. You were like, don't want to do that. Brother, I don't care if you had no legs, was in a wheelchair with no hands, they still would have said that you was wrong.
I wouldn't have cared.
And hey, and everybody,
I don't care.
Everybody has their right to that. And he probably is in the same.
And I feel like there needs to be more people that stand on stuff, because I wouldn't have cared. I would have been like, yep, I ain't shaking your hand. That's right. I ain't shaking your hand. I'm not shaking your hand. If Kamala Harris was in front of me right now and she stuck her hand out to shake my hand, I wouldn't put myself in a situation.
Why wouldn't you shake her hand?
You don't agree with her politically.
Why would I shake her hand? Why wouldn't I shake her hand?
Just because you don't.
I don't appreciate the fact that they tried to do the blackface with Kamala Harris, the same thing they did with Barack Obama. They are not. They did not. Their parents were not black on this soil. They did. You talk. If somebody talk about the transatlantic slave trade that goes right through my front yard, her parents did not go through any of that.
Tarris,
Donald Trump. Hold on. Let me finish. You asked me why. I'm going to finish. Let me finish the spot. Let me finish. Her parents did not go through. They didn't go through chattel slavery. They didn't come through anything. They didn't have any kind of lineage that deals with the United States of America. They have reached to the highest pinnacle that they possibly can. But there's so many qualified people who are parents, who great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents came up through slavery, who are very well qualified. That the Democratic Party does not put up in front of the black people. For they only excel African Americans. That's what they have done, and that's what they've done. That's what they put in her face. And I don't like what the Democratic Party did with her and made it a DEI. And I wouldn't shake her hand.
Tarris, are you black?
I'm absolutely, both my parents black. Both my grandparents black. Both my great-great-grandparents black. Right. Born Alabama, cotton picking black.
When people meet you, black, white, whatever, throughout your life, or at least your adult life when you were old enough to process these things, have they treated you like you were black?
Sir, let me tell you something.
I mean, yes or no?
Okay. When I grew up, I grew up in a military area.
Like a black man?
$30,000. Hold on, let me get. I'll answer the question with this, and it'll take me 30 seconds. I grew up in an area in the country where we grew up in a suburbs with our house was equivalent to $30,000 in 1978. $300,000 down. So when these kids come in the country, white boys come in the country and try to talk about us, we'd be like, going back to your farm boy, we're going to play Atari.
Yes or no?
We're going to play Atari. No, white boys
Does
don't
America
do nothing
treat
to me.
you like you're black?
Yes.
Okay, you're about the same complexion as Kamala Harris. You can believe that America has treated her like she's a black woman.
But if she wanted to say I'm Indian, she could say she's Indian.
The woman has clearly said multiple times she's of mixed heritage. She is both. She has said it over and over and over and over again. So
y'all
you
push
can
it off
be
like
black,
she's black. Y'all can deflect it all you want to. Y'all try to plaster off as the first black president, and then we got in y'all's butts about it, and then that's y'all started
Barack Obama was the first black president. And
he's African American.
You know why?
He's African American.
Because when America
his daddy
looks at
ain't
him,
from here. His daddy
they
ain't from
see
here.
a black man. He was treated as a black man, and he'll be treated as a black man until he dies.
In blackface.
This conversation about Kamala Harris's ethnicity, and that's ridiculous.
It's blackface.
You wouldn't shake her hand because you don't think she's black?
And y'all try to put her up there. Y'all try to put her up as black and try to make us feel guilty.
Y'all try to say
that she
woman is black.
You sound racist, brother.
She ain't black. She ain't black. She ain't black.
So
she ain't black.
So clearly,
that's why.
The reason why I wouldn't shake Donald Trump's hands for the reason I mentioned earlier. He's an adjudicated rapist. He's a serial liar, and he's an insurrectionist. I don't jive with none of that. And you wouldn't shake Kamala's hand because you don't.
The Democratic Party push her out as a black woman when my sisters are black. My mother is a black woman. I know I know people who have experienced segregation. No. I know too many black women that get past Kamala Harris, and I know too many people like Rachel Dolezal who try to assimilate and say that no, come on, man. This is what I probably had with the Democratic Party. Stand on your business. Y'all know she wasn't black. Candace Owens did a whole lineage background doing all her stuff. They brought up her birth certificate. So why
didn't you say it to begin with? Well, she said it. Discussion over with. All right, because Candace Owens said it.
No, she presented evidence and birth certificates. Y'all laughing at me just like y'all did before the election when Kamala Harris got beat. Y'all laughing at me the same way, the same energy when Kamala Harris got dog walked because y'all got that same narrative. That's why she got dog walked.
You laughing now, right? You laughing now. You're gonna be crying later because Trump don't have nothing for you.
I will not be crying. Y'all
have nothing for you, and everything you think you trying to do.
Who?
Just
Donald Trump? I'm looking past Donald Trump. I'm looking past Donald Trump. 2028.
4 years to waste. 4 years to waste and past Donald Trump. Give me a break. You know what I'm saying?
4 years from now, we can do receipts. 4 years from now, we'll see if my approach and my programming moves the needle further than
your own interest. That makes absolutely no sense. You speak all these things like you pro-black and everything else, but I mean, you just worked against your own interest. Make that make sense.
How did I work against my own interest? How did you tell me one thing I did to work against my own interest?
In office that clearly has nothing set aside that they're going to do specifically for black folks. That same demand that you have for Democrats, he doesn't even have anybody in his administration. He's showing you outright. I don't even think he cares about the American people. That's just like he is all about his businesses and how to further that along and the tax breaks for the rich. It's all about that right now. It has nothing to do with working people, poor people, or just middle class people. We are going to be left behind.
The Democratic Party lost all the working class people, and I guarantee you, in 4 years from now, I will personally push the narrative.
Tarris, I don't think you did this on purpose, but a lot of people have made this mistake. I hear people saying the Democrats lost the working class in the last election. How do you see that? When the majority of black people are working class. And
Latino people are working class. Hispanic people are working class. Hispanic people are working class.
All of whom still voted Democrat. Terrence, the majority of all of whom still voted Democrat.
Kevin, now, this is what I talk about when you guys don't want to even. Y'all can't reality.
Trump was able to leech some people off. But
This
the
is
vast
reality.
majority of the people
You guys lost an
talking about
election
still
by a
vote Democrat.
landslide, and you're still trying to defend it. You guys lost an
I'm not
election
trying to
by
defend
a
it. We're just
landslide,
trying to,
and
we're
you're
just
still
trying
trying
to
to say
provide
that
facts.
y'all still
Tarris,
trying to
you trying to
on
Tarris,
racism,
stop. Just
DEI,
stop,
and
brother.
middle
Just
class.
stop. Because you're trying to make it
Lost.
seem like there's this mass exodus of Black and Hispanic and working class people that's going to the Republican Party.
What did you not see in this election?
That is not true.
What is it going to take?
What is true is Donald Trump was able to peel off more of those people than he did last time. And that probably did make the difference in this election. But it does not mean that Black people or Hispanic people or whomever are abandoning the Democratic Party for the Republican Party. And you know why they're not? Because they know, most of us have sense enough to know that the Republicans ain't offering nothing. You know what I find ironic is that Black men who think like you, Tarris, and some who have successful and gone on to be a part of the Republican Party, you know, they denigrate DEI and affirmative action programs, not understanding, brother, that you talk about how do you undermine things that benefit you. You are a beneficiary of those programs, whether you want to admit it or not. You are a direct beneficiary of DEI and affirmative action. If not you directly, somebody in your descendancy line that got your skin color benefited from policies that help them get ahead and help them get opportunities. So you stand on the shoulders, brother, of DEI and affirmative action. And to hear people like Clarence Thomas and these so-called enlightened Black men who think that they made it themselves are deluding themselves, just like anybody who thinks that they're a self-made individual. Nobody, I don't care what your skin color is a self-made person. That is a lie perpetuated in this country to make it think like, oh, you're this rugged individualism. No, we all make it by other people who lift us up and bring us along, and through programs and policies and opportunities that allow us to ascend. The sad part about it is that people who look like you and I, we have to fight for those programs when this country was built for people who don't look like us to benefit from those things. And when I hear it, it saddens me. It really does saddens me when I hear Black men in particular talk down on the very policies that they wouldn't have what they had if it wasn't for it.
Right. Somebody's got a question. They want to know, Tarris, are you an office holder?
Yes.
What office do you hold?
I'm a city council person in Dayton, Kentucky. Dayton, Kentucky. It's a predominantly 99% white place. Came in here. I moved here in October, and I filed for candidacy 3 weeks into living here, 3 to 4 weeks into living here. Ran a very successful campaign and won my first election as a Black man in an all-white old sundown town. Won an election, and it's not like I don't receive racism, because I get it. I've been getting it all my life, but I fight against it in a different way. I'm telling you, since I was a kid, whenever the kids on the bus talk about, oh, you're black, they would go back to their farms and have to go milk cows while me and my brothers and my friends and Black friends in our majority Black high middle class neighborhood were playing Atari. Racism doesn't touch me because I can run faster than them. I'm smarter than they are. There's nothing they can beat me at on a fair fight. When you start cheating and start bringing white supremacy in and start bringing nepotism and start bringing testing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But when it comes, and I don't believe that there's a Black kid out there that a white kid is better than. I think it's opportunity, and I think it's about all these kind of things that we need to stop doing, because the racism thing, it worked for our grandparents, and we shall overcome marks. We need to pivot to something different. If it means us getting on the local level and getting more Black people, men especially, or women, elected and starting programming and start retraining our young kids at 3rd grade, teaching them about the political process as Black people, teaching them the history of the Republican Party in the 1800s, of Reconstruction, about how Black people were not Republicans wasn't always racist. It's the switch, like you said. Let's teach them that kind of history. Not Black people were slaves. Let's teach them about Reconstruction. Let's teach them about Wilmington. Let's teach them about Black Wall Street. Let's teach them these kids, like in the 1800s in Long Beach, California, they were teaching those people.
That's the stuff your party don't want taught. That's the funny thing, Tarris. That's the stuff you talking about. That's the stuff your party is trying to get banned out of schools. Everything.
So if that's the case, why can't we, as Black men and women, start at the local level and start
Because you
implementing
can't sleep with
programming.
the enemy. You can't sleep with the enemy and change it. That's the
So
problem.
don't get involved. So don't get involved.
That's
So
the
don't get
problem
involved.
that you
So
have,
don't get
Terrence,
involved.
is you
So
are,
don't get
and
involved.
I'm not saying, hey, look, brother, if you can do it, hats off. I'll apologize to you 5, 10, 15 years down the road, whenever you achieve this coup that you think you and other black men can do with the Republican Party. Hats off to you. I hope you do it, brother. Keep your nose to the grindstone. I think you're digging a ditch to nowhere. Personally.
Okay, hold
No.
within 30 days, I'm going to come back on here in 90 days. In 90 days, I will have implemented a program in Dayton, Kentucky that will benefit black kids. But if black kids don't want to participate, it will benefit all kids. But it's going to be an opportunity that black kids will have first and exclusively first. I'm going to take 10 kids and teach them
They're
financial
not going to
literacy.
care if it's benefiting black kids.
I'm
They're
worried
not
about
going
you
to do
teaching them
that.
anything, brother. I'm sorry.
So don't do nothing or do something or try something or don't infiltrate the system. Try to infiltrate the system. What do? Sit back and talk about it. Talk about racism. Talk about how the America's so racist and we can't get nothing done.
Speak the truth.
I'm glad we got black people.
I'm speaking the truth.
Republican
Speak
Party.
the truth. And they like, don't come with your Candace Owens and your fake fucking snooze. You know,
I don't
your
like Fox.
conspiracy
I don't
theories.
like Fox,
Leave
but I do
all
got
that
respect for
behind.
Candace.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want teachers indoctrinating they bullshit. Just keep that to the side.
Same thing with I can say the same thing about the NAACP and the HBCUs. You guys indoctrinate a certain way, and you guys have people on top. Who's on top? Who's on top? Who's cutting the checks?
What are you
I cut my own.
about?
Who cutting the check? I'm talking about in all these organizations.
You're
talking about from the
SNCC,
SNCC, from all of them. I don't care, man. You know I don't care. All of y'all, who's cutting y'all's checks from the Boule all the way to the Boys and Girls Club, all the way. Who's cutting the checks? Who's cutting the checks?
Look, my service with the NAACP was absolutely free.
Thank you. I appreciate your service.
All
But
chapters,
who's at the top? Who's at the top? Who's at the top?
Who's at the top? Is our president. And so
who does he have to answer to? It's not a black ran organization. It was ran by black and white people. These are come on, man. Y'all cannot argue me down on this whenever I know the truth.
We raise money. We have Freedom Fund dinners, people that support our cause. Yeah.
And it's not all black. It ain't all black. It's not all black.
They don't have to be all black. They're all allies.
We have allies. We have allies.
But black Republicans can't have allies, right? They're all racist.
We never said it was all black, but we support the efforts and advancement of people of color. And that's just not just black people, it's all people of color. So what are you
That's what I just said I'm gonna do, and y'all said it wasn't gonna work.
So that means
Tarris, tell me how you square with this. Now, right now, there are policies that they throw this dog whistle of CRT out there, and you're gonna say, well, that's not what I'm gonna be teaching in my school. That's what they're gonna call it. And they're fine with letting you create a school. You're gonna start it out for predominantly black kids. Yeah, they're gonna let you do that. Cause what? You live in a 99% county. What, you got 10 black kids? That's no threat. They'll let you do that. We'll give Tarris money because it'll make us seem like we're being beneficial.
I'm self-funded.
We're gonna let him educate these poor black kids on black history. When do you start talking about instituting that into these white schools down there?
Sir,
now come back on here and talk to me about that when you start trying to take Black Wall Street and all what you talking into these white Kentucky schools. Brother, you will not be in office long, I promise.
I will ask you. I'm having a meeting. I'm having an interest meeting on Thursday, and I will send you all the itinerary and everything that we're going to be talking about as far as financial literacy, teaching kids how to change a tire, how to tie a tie, all those kind of things. And your kids could benefit from it as well. But instead of, say, you know what, T, you're making more, you're doing even more than what I appreciate what you're doing, and let me help you. Let me assist you in any type of way. You're like, y'all can't do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. Crab in the bucket, Democrat, liberal mentality, baby. Do nothing, Democrat.
It's experience.
If you talk about it in the capacity of the NAACP, that's nonpartisan. So the
NAACP is nonpartisan. Who did they start with? Who did they start with? Who did the NAACP start with? Who does even the NAACP chapter that you go to? They have to answer to somebody on their high boards, and they are not black ran. Come on, don't do this, guys. You guys are
Tarris. So Tarris, if you believe in this, tell me then why is there such a explain this? Then answer this simple question and don't go all around the block. Okay. Why is there such a concerted effort in the Republican Party to stop the teaching of Black history in schools?
from my experience and why I think it is because they don't want to. Okay, whenever you were in Black history, whenever you're taught about slavery, how did it make you feel? Whenever the first time you're asking me a question, I'm saying, so the first time somebody ever, when I was like, when they talk about slavery, everybody in the class turns around and looks at you and you like feel like you're like less than. No, let's take Black history about Black Wall Street. Let's think about the 1800s. Let's think about Reconstruction. Let's make racism this much, and let's teach about
So
what's
only
happening.
teach about
Let's
the good parts. Only teach about good Black history. Only think about good Black history that make Black and white people feel good and comfortable.
Okay,
about,
Nathan,
I'm
going to answer your question. I'm going to answer your question straight up. I'm going to answer your question straight up.
We're not ashamed of our history.
Trauma.
Yes, it's very tragic and it's traumatizing.
It's a trauma
trigger.
It's a trauma trigger.
Nobody would ever say, hey, because of the
today.
It's a trauma trigger.
If anything, that type of adversity, going through everything that we as African Americans have been through in this country.
Here we go. You see, trauma.
That's a story to be told. That is adversity. That's against our lives. So it's no shame in the slavery because those was babies born into slavery. That's how you can have centuries and centuries of enslaved people. When you have babies born into slavery, knowing no other way of life. You know what I mean?
Okay, I hear you.
And everything else, the humanity, just all of that pieced together is nothing to be ashamed of. If anything, looking at us today, speaking of how much we've been able to overcome, that's a story to be told. It's not to be forgotten. It's not to be suppressed. It's not to be whitewashed at all.
But okay, once after slavery, there was Reconstruction. After Reconstruction, Black people arguably were doing better at 1800 to 1900 before the 1920s and the KKK. Hold on, let me finish, please. We were doing better in between that time because we were teaching trades and teaching Black kids things how to do. We were better economically. We were better politically. Black people were better up until 1920, and they stopped it. So why, if we knew and we had those policies in place in Reconstruction, why can't we get those policies back in place? Get people learning in that same capacity where Black people are teaching Black people things.
What I said. Why do you need? Because of what I said, my white friend told me earlier. If you're going to tell the story of Reconstruction, then you can't just tell, oh, we built Black Wall Street and we did all of this. What you also got to tell is you also have to talk about without the protection of the government. Black people were able to ascend during Reconstruction because the federal government literally had to have soldiers on the ground in these southern states and countries to make sure that the racist slave owners did not do exactly what they eventually did when federal troops were pulled out, which is basically bully, destroy, murder, kill, and take over everything that Black people have built and take over as their own. Why? Because they did not want to see Black people achieve equal or greater success than them. So this is why history is important to tell that. You can't just tell the glowing part.
So tell that.
What we see in this country time and again, what you see in this country time and again is that every time Black people step up and achieve a certain level of success, there's always a white backlash that follows.
Right.
And every time an organization gets up to a certain amount, they've always got a white person on top.
And we don't even have to go back that far. We can go back to 2000. We can go back to 2008. You elect Barack Obama, and all of a sudden, what comes out of the woodwork? The Tea Party. Now, all of these white folks are suddenly concerned about taxes and all bull crap. And if you looked at the root of that and the racism that was a big part of the Tea Party back then, that was white backlash again, because now you would have Black people ascend to the highest office in the land. Every time Black people make progress, there is white backlash. That is fact. That is history. You cannot like it if you don't want to.
I love it. And what you just said, Kevin, what Kevin just said makes me
part of history. January 6th is just another part of white people's history, reacting when they feel like things aren't going their way. There's a long, grisly history of white Americans reacting violently, taking justice into their own hands, pillaging, destroying. It's a long history of that. And so we just keep seeing the same thing played over and over again. And this is why I say, when you hear the Republican Party and elected officials and Fox News and Newsmax using those dog whistles. Basically, that's the race card for white people. They're trying to get white people upset, make white people feel like somebody's taking something from you, make white people believe that the reason why your son and daughter are living with you still is because of DEI, or is because of Haitians, or is because of somebody brown, right? And it works like a charm. And this is how we got another term of Donald Trump. He used and seized white people's frustration and their fears about their place in American society. And it worked like a charm.
I could say the same thing. The Democratic Party played on the fears and the emotions of Black Americans and instilled in this conversation fear, fear, fear. Oh, so scared of what's going to happen. Who are any here scared? And people, and even in the comment section right here, there people are like,
acknowledging is that Black fear was based in reality. This white fear is manufactured.
Yes,
it's
absolutely
manufactured. Right. There's a difference. Black people's fear were real. We were being killed. We were literally being lynched. We were literally being separated by color. That's very different than saying, oh, white men are being discriminated against at a greater rate. That's fallacy. That's fictitious. There's nothing real about that fear that's being created. However, when you was Black back in the day, and even in some places today, you better watch your back for that rope.
Hey, Brian has a question. I agree with. He wants to know what Phil's thinking.
You awfully quiet, Phil.
What's Phil thinking?
Hold it. Are you suggesting me being quiet is out of character? Is that what you're suggesting?
All I know is Brian wants to know what you're thinking. I thought, that's a good question. He's right.
Well, to be honest with you, I've been thinking about something that I was going to almost save to the end because it pertains to something we talked, or you guys, whatever, talked about way back.
Let's go there then. We've been talking for a while now. We're at the end of the show, and as I always say, speak now or forever hold your peace. Was there something that you heard, or maybe you've got a comment or a question or whatever? Speak now before we end the show, or let it go. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah. We were talking ways back about dog whistles, and I agreed that my party in this election really relied on dog whistles. Okay, and it wasn't just race stuff. It was this thing about transgender playing high school, playing sports. When you look at it, there was like maybe one in every state. I mean, interesting enough, I was reading a story the other day by some pollster. The most effective commercial that Trump ran was the one where he took the quote from Kamala Harris in 2019, where she said something about prisoners or immigrant prisoners we should pay for their sex change operations. That was the most effective commercial. Okay. And the point that I would make, once we're agreed that these dog whistles were used and probably won the race or were very effective, one of the things that gives these people who play on those themes the opportunity are things that are said. I think Tarris would agree with this. Things that are said by the Democratic left. And here's the thing: you don't need to have a majority of Democratic leaders agree that we should pay for transgender or sex change. You don't need. All you need is somebody who's a leader on the left, like Ocasio-Cortez, who says something, and then they take it and they make it like everybody. This is what all Democrats, including the candidates, stand for. And I think and what I'm getting to, and I'll give you another, what I think is a good example, is we have to somehow stop these people like Ocasio-Cortez and people and Tlaib, whatever her name is. They say things, okay? And the reason they say them, by the way, is because they live in gerrymandered districts where they don't ever have to worry about any Republican competition. They're just playing to the far left. But they say things, the Squad and others, that get blown or used to attack any Democrat, including Kamala Harris. Now, I'll give you a good example of this. You might remember that people at some point on the left were saying defund the police. Okay, and I know you're going to say, oh, they don't really mean take the money, but whatever. That was the stupidest phrase you can imagine. Though they weren't affected by it because they were in gerrymandered districts. But what the my party did is they took that and they beat that into the ground. And what I really respected Representative Clyburn. If you remember, this is back 4 years ago. I thought that was going to cost Biden the race. He basically came out and said, shut up with that stuff, because he recognized that that was going to be taken and blown up all over the place, even though maybe just a small number on the left said it. He was 100% right about that. So what I'm getting at is that, yeah, I'm with you on the dog whistles and how wrong it is, but those on the left of the Democratic Party basically make it easy to you by make it easy for them to do that by extreme statements like defund the police, et cetera, or giving transgender, whatever, operations for prisoners. So there's fault on the left too, because they give ammunition to those who want to use those kind of dog whistles.
I disagree, but anybody else? Anything on your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just respond to that. I mean, look, you know, you got politicians on both sides who say things that certainly are not reflective of what the majority in their party think. And just like, you know, you can point to any myriad of racist comments that, you know, some Republican, you know, senator or congressman has said, you know, that the Democrats will take and highlight and use and say, see, look, this is why the whole party's racist. I mean, that's part of what the political machine does on both sides of the issue. What's incumbent upon all of us is to be smarter and to see beyond that, to see beyond those political tricks and the games that the parties try to play, and be above that. The fact that we spent so much time, and don't mistake what I'm saying in terms of talking about issues of transgenderism, but you're talking about an incredibly small part of the population who these issues that we're talking about are probably take place in probably less than 1% of places and in situations. Yet the amount of money spent vilifying transgender people in those issues, like, you know, like what's said is, well, they're spending taxpayer dollars on prisoner sex changes. Really? Well, how many prisoner sex changes have there actually been? And how much money has actually been spent on that?
Kamala Harris she made the statement that allowed them to do that, even though you are 100% right. As I said, the percentage is so small. But when people like Kamala Harris and people in the Democratic Party trying to win a Democratic primary, that's what they're trying to do. Those expressions come back to haunt them.
That wasn't even during a primary. I think her statement on that came in some kind of interview or something when she
I think it was a debate. It was a debate, presidential debate. I'm quite sure. 2000.
What I've seen, the line that they pulled on the sex change, I think, was some type of interview when she was still prosecutor out in California.
No.
I don't think that was when she was. Not true. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're wrong. It was in 2019. It was not way back. She was a senator, but she said it.
I mean, but again, you know. Look, you can peel back through someone's political career, their personal career, their lives, their Facebook page. Look, I'm sure if you went back through my history, you could probably find something that I've said when somebody asked me a question. If you wanted to make a political commercial out of it, if I was running for office, you know, you probably could. I think the real question is are those things that are what we choose to disqualify a candidate for? I mean, look. If you're going to say Kamala Harris doesn't deserve to be president because she supports sex change surgeries for prisoners, I'm not saying this is you, Phil. I'm just saying in general, as a general voter, if you have a problem with that, but you don't have a problem with a guy saying he's going to release prisoners from a January 6th attack, if sex change surgeries for prisoners bothers you more than that, then that does say something about your transphobia, your homophobia, whatever you've got.
As Representative Clyburn said, if people on the left make those kind of comments like defund the police, which became kind of a rallying cry, it kills. It is going to be used as ammunition and as dog whistles in somebody's election. Okay, so all I'm saying is that those statements, if the people on the left would stop making those kind of stupid comments, I think we'd have a much better chance for them.
But if that's what a politician,
he just did it. Phil just
believes
chased over.
Hey, look, if that's what she believes in, he or she believes in, and that's the platform that you run on and you get elected on. Hey, look, I don't particularly agree with build that wall or mass deportations, but that's what somebody said. A whole hell of a lot of people said Donald Trump shouldn't say that. He said, you know what? I don't give a rip. I'm going to keep saying it. I don't care what the political advisors are telling me I should say or not say. I'm going to say what I want to say. So to suggest that whether it's on the left or the right, hey, look, say what you're going to say. It's going to have consequences. If people get behind it and they support it, they'll support it. And if they don't, they don't. But I'm not going to tell any politician that they shouldn't speak their mind or believe on issue, whether that's defund the police or build the wall. If that's what you think you can run on and win on, hey, do your thing. And if that will
just to be clear, the people who make those comments like Ocasio-Cortez, they don't have a problem with it because they're in gerrymandered districts, just like Kamala Harris made that comment about sex change for president when she was running in a Democratic primary, and she was playing to the far left who vote in Democratic primaries. Okay, and I'm saying when you do that, it doesn't always come back. It did come back to haunt her.
Do they deserve representation? I'm just asking because when y'all say the far left, these are people too. And do they deserve representation?
Does far right deserve representation? Does MAGA?
Do racists? I mean, do extremists? Do they? And look, they have a place, don't they? So you sitting up here and you're basically saying that, you know, Democrats, again, like I said, watch this narrative to stop woke and to stop speaking on subjects that people care about. There's a segment in our party that this is their interest and that they fight for it. They lobby for this. They go to you know, Congress and they speak on it for people to work on their behalf. And so if it's a Congresswoman, what's her name? I can't think of it.
Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah, like if she's the one that's trying to champion that for these individuals, she's not wrong in that. She doesn't have to stand down on that. People who continue to say that we have to stand down on issues that people care about. No, I don't agree with that. And the moment that Democrats begin to do that, they're going to lose more of their party. If anything, you know, people have to be more open-minded and really get to what the priority is, because the bathrooms and transgender this and immigrants, you know, and Haitians eating cats and dogs, that is not what people really care about. Like, people care about their bills, people care about child care, people care about tax cuts and everything else. Like, stick to those. All what the Republicans did all throughout the campaign was use those dog whistles, was to use those Southern strategies, things to divide us and to put us against each other. And what is sad is that it worked. It worked.
Well, and that's why you can't say people don't care about it, because clearly they do. That's why, the thing. You can say that maybe they shouldn't care about it more than they care about the economy and these other things. And I would be in complete agreement with you on that, which was my point. Like, you know, these transgender issues, not that they aren't important, particularly to that demographic and those people, but in the grand scheme of things that really affect your daily life, I don't knowingly interact with anybody from the transgender community, not because I avoid them or anything. Like, I don't know any transgender people knowingly. I don't avoid them. I wouldn't have a problem. I just don't know any. And if I do encounter them,
you just didn't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And if I do, but I guess my general overall point is there's nothing that anybody transgender is doing that is impacting my daily life in any kind of significant way where I need to feel like that's some sort of threat to me.
That's why it's a dog whistle and not a statement of fact. If Kamala Harris had made that statement about in 2019 about giving taxpayer-funded prisoner sex changes, they couldn't have used that against her in this campaign. I'm sure she could go back. She would never have said that.
But Trump allowed it through his administration. And that's the other fact that I wish they would have pushed out for more. Trump had the same.
Both sides.
Those are facts.
Both sides.
No, it is. No. Trump had this during his administration.
Yeah,
He
Trump
never
did it.
stopped it. He
They
never
both
stopped
did
it.
They both did it. And that's the politics of it.
It's not
And
the
that's why I
logic
think you're
behind
wrong, Phil, because it wouldn't have mattered what Harris said or didn't say. The political operatives that work for the Republican Party, their job is to find something. They would have found something else, right? It doesn't really matter. Transgender this or she said something else. Their job is to make
So
it more important and try to get people to vote for their candidate.
said, let me
And
ask you,
they were able to successfully do that.
in the
That's
2020
politics.
campaign, when Clyburn specifically said, "Stop saying defund the police; it's going to hurt Biden in the election." Okay, you think he was wrong? He should have said, "Oh, that's fine, no problem. Go ahead. They'll use it. Go ahead." You think he was wrong?
Well, I mean, I can't say that Clyburn is wrong. I mean, that's a man who's been 50 years in the political game. He is a Democrat. He is an elected official. He is a Democrat strategist, and he is an operative. So if he was saying that, that's based upon what he thought with his experience was probably best for the Democrat Party.
I'm agreeing with him.
And perhaps history will prove that he was wrong in that, or he was right in that. He was right to tell the Democrats not to do that. But that's his job, though. I mean, you got people making millions of dollars.
Well, it's our role to comment here on this show, and I'm just making a comment that I agree with what he said, and it applies to some other too.
In hindsight, but I still don't believe that there was a total embrace by the Democrat Party on that
language. I wanted Biden to win, and I heard those comments, and I said, how stupid. I know
plenty of Democrats, Phil,
saying something like that is going to kill Biden, hurt him in the next election. Fortunately, he still made it. But I was angry at those people saying that.
You worried about a statement, but it was never put into
Hamilton
policy.
County.
It was never policy.
When that rhetoric was
all
out
you need
there,
is a quote, Nicole. You don't need it to be in policy.
There were plenty of Democrats. Hold on, excuse me. There were plenty of Democrats who felt like, nah, we shouldn't be saying that. So this idea that because one or two or a handful of Democrat elected officials or even Democrat operatives or media types were in favor of defund the police, that doesn't mean the vast majority of the Democrat elected
exactly. But
that's politics, though. That's what I'm saying. That's what the other side's job is to tell the story about your opponent. Yep. You create the narrative around them for the electorate. And that's what the Republican Party did. It wouldn't have made a difference what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said. It wouldn't have made a difference what Kamala Harris said. That's the job of political operatives. They did a good job. That's it.
Yeah. Can I finish? And I want to talk about the dog whistle and the racism. And I believe they're on both sides. There's dog whistles, racism on the Republican side and the Democratic side. And being a black conservative, I've dealt with more racism from white Democrats than you'll ever get. Way more personal attacks, cancel culture, so much stuff that being called Uncle Ruckus and Coon and all these kind of disparaging names because I have different political ideologies, which is crazy. So there's racism on both sides. That's one. The DEI stuff, you're talking about transgender, it costs the city taxpayers. Let me go off that. Somebody in the chat asked what I do for a living. I'm self-employed. I'm self-employed and I don't need anything from me. I don't ask anybody for anybody. I'm self-employed. What are my platforms? Somebody asked in the chat, what's my platform for Dayton City Council? Project 1099. It's a program that there's 10 kids that I'm going to take and they're going to go a 10-week program. And after that 10-week program, they're going to get either $99 cash to go spend on their business idea, $99 to start their business, or $99 to put in the Fidelity market that they're going to have a market account that's going to be attached to their grandparents or their parents, whatever custodial parent is on there. On the board of directors, I have people who are professional athletes, financial advisors, they're black athletes, white attorneys, black attorneys. We have a very good board of directors. So Project 2020 or I took it off of Project 2025 whenever I was thinking of it. I was like, let's do something good for the kids. So that's my platform in Project 1099, which will be implemented. And starting in May, I will have receipts. We will have graduated our first class, 10 kids, and given them all $100, $99 cash, $99 toward their business, or $99. Because I'm going to prefer they all do the money market because the money market is at a 6.5, this return of investment. And we're going to teach them financial literacy, how to tie a tie, how to change a tire, how to make a basic meal for men, how to shake a hand and how to shake a hand correctly, or dap a dude up, or talk.
Are you going to politically indoctrinate them to the Republican Party while you're doing all of this stuff?
This is a definitely a bipartisan. There's not no partisan is going to be involved in this. But I will. It's an open invite. But I guarantee you, Nate, nobody from the Democratic Party is going to try to help me. There's organizations over here such as the NAACP, the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. All these people who are nonpartisan, 501c3s. They don't mess with me, dog. They don't mess with me because of my political affiliation. And there's one last thing. By May, I'll have that. And the last thing that I'm gonna leave on Northern Kentucky University's campus, there are a group of conservatives who are Black, Hispanic, mixed, LGBTQ, who don't have a voice to speak on that campus. And we're going to change that. That's my platform. And we're going to do it. And it don't matter. They just need to have a safe place to talk without being called Uncle Ruckus or any names that you're called on the disparaging side that the Democratic Party are known for doing. Any thought that is not in the kind of the Democratic thought, and I guarantee you, what I just put out there to you guys, it's not Democrat or Republican. I'm not going to even use my political party on any of this. I'm not going to even use my political platform, my city council on any of this. But I'm going to lead as a strong Black conservative man. Thank you.
Okay. And listen, guys, I really appreciate your time. We're almost hitting about 3 hours, and I know you got stuff going on a Tuesday. So I just want to say I really appreciate everybody here. And we're planning to be back on Friday at 1 p.m. for another episode of the Hot Mic Podcast. And we'll be talking about hot topics. And I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Have
Dave.
a great rest of your day.
You too, guys.